Hello, everybody. Welcome to the official NVIDIA Q3 2024 earnings stream. I am here with my boy, Jose, who is one of the best semiconductor analysts on YouTube. And if you're watching from Jose's channel, you already know that. This is going to be a big one. This is going to be a big one. And the reason why this is going to be a big one is because obviously NVIDIA is one of the most valuable stocks on the planet. It has kind of steered the direction of the stock market this year. NVIDIA up about 200%, the broader market up about 25%, really on the backs of this idea that we're in the AI revolution and NVIDIA is leading the way. So we got about 30 minutes. We're going to do some breakdowns and some previews of what everyone can expect going into earnings, what me and Jose think will happen. And then we will get the answers at 4:05 and we will see what happens with the stock. Jose, how are you doing?
Pretty good. And I think it's going to be closer to 4:15. I think last time we were waiting and everybody was hitting that refresh button. But I'm pretty excited. I'm nervous. I'm not going to lie. You know, I was on your live stream yesterday and I wasn't nervous, but today I'm getting a little stage fright, maybe because I'm live streaming on my channel as well. But I'm pretty excited about earnings. And I mean, I guess because I follow NVIDIA almost on a daily basis, I'm just wondering, hey, what am I going to hear that maybe I haven't heard before? So I guess that's what is getting me the most excited to see if I find out anything that we haven't discussed in the past. But I think we're going to get some pretty great numbers here for NVIDIA, and I'm just waiting to see how the stock reacts to everything.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really special one. And like you've said, you've been covering NVIDIA every single day for like the past couple of years. So if they say something that catches you by surprise, then it's going to be one of those things where it's just going to be important to kind of see how they navigate it. So let's get started. Let's get into some previews, some thoughts, some questions. Also, guys, we have Snowflake and Palo Alto Network. So we'll be looking at that probably within the first 20 minutes until NVIDIA announces. But we have all three of those coming up today. So I'll put up the street numbers, but what are you expecting, Jose, out of these earnings and anything that you think they're going to announce that the street is not expecting?
Yeah, so I mean, I think one thing is the street has gotten better at understanding NVIDIA and its supply chain, right? So I want to say I do expect NVIDIA to beat on both revenue and earnings per share. Not by much, but a beat. And the reason I say this is because at the end of the day, we do know that NVIDIA's chip solution is supply constraint, something we talked about numerous times. So it's literally not possible for them to do like a massive surprise, right? So I do think in the past few quarters, Wall Street has gotten a little bit better at understanding kind of the supply chain bottlenecks. I still believe NVIDIA is going to outperform on both earnings per share and revenue, but I think we have to also remember that there is some form of cap level because of the supply chain issues that they have, right? TSMC can't really pretty much produce as many chips as NVIDIA wants. The only thing I want to say can really surprise me, in my opinion, is going to be the networking side of NVIDIA, because I believe the networking side isn't supply constrained, and that's something that they mentioned last quarter with their Spectrum X and some other kind of networking solution that NVIDIA has. It was growing at some rapid levels, and that one, while it's in the low billion dollar run rates, I think that one has the opportunity to kind of create some great numbers, and that's what I'm pretty excited about during this earnings call.
Is there any part of the business that you think so Jensen's basically been saying demand is off the charts, and all of the analysts that cover NVIDIA are also saying we think demand is off the charts. So for example, you got Dan Ives right here. We expect a drop the mic performance from NVIDIA. GPUs are the new oil and gold. We believe 2 billion beat and 2 billion guide higher. Is there a world where you think Jensen has to defend them not living up to the potential of the demand matching the results? Like, could Jensen say, yeah, the demand was not as high as we thought it was, or there's no chance?
I think there's no chance. I mean, there's always a chance in the market, right? But I think based on all the channels we're following, all the kind of articles we've been seeing, I don't think that's the case this quarter. It's not impossible for maybe to happen in the future, but this quarter, I don't think that's going to be the case. And I did get a question here on my channel, just to reiterate, I do think Nvidia is going to outperform Wall Street expectations on both revenue, on guidance, on earnings per share. But if we've seen historically, I think historically the outperform was in the double digits, like 10%. I think now it's getting closer to like 5%. And I just think the reason is because Wall Street is getting a little bit better. They're not perfect at it, so I do believe Nvidia will still outperform, but they're getting a little bit better at matching those numbers right now.
So Wall Street wants 33.1 billion, and they want 75 cents of EPS. What is your projection?
Pretty much what Dan mentioned. I do believe it is possible for about 1 to 2 billion beat on both guidance and revenue.
Okay, so got it. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then for earnings per share, maybe like not 2 or 3 cents at most, because we do know that with Blackwell becoming an important part of this company's business, margin is going to take a quick hit for the first few quarters of Blackwell's production, just like we talked about yesterday in your channel. As new chips are being built, the production line, it takes time for them to kind of get sent out. So you kind of get a little bit hit in margin pressure right now. So we do know that this quarter, we're going to get a little bit of hit in margin pressure, and the guidance for next quarter should also kind of follow suit. But I think it's still going to be over 70% easily.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And we'll talk about margins in a second. Nvidia right here down 1%. It was down 2%. So you see it tracking up just a little bit right there. Do you think the down 1% today has anything to do with people getting a little nervous? I mean, we know a lot of people are pretty bullish, buying calls, market's pricing in a 10% move top or down. But do you think there's a little bit of a, hey, maybe Jensen's going to leave us at the altar? Let's sell.
I mean, I think everybody's watching this earnings, right? So everybody's getting nervous. Some people are expecting the stock to go up. You were talking about it earlier today, right? It's just the way the market is. You have a group of buyers, you have a group of sellers. I do believe there are going to be people that are a bit scared right now, especially since just a few days ago, we kind of heard some nonsense news about overheating issues. So I guess at the end of some investors might have at the back of their mind, hey, what if this company doesn't outperform? What if this company really does have these issues that were kind of discussed in over the weekend?
Yeah. So this is MicroStrategy's chart, guys. MicroStrategy right here at 497 right now, up 15% on the day. It is up more than 500% year to date. And then Nvidia, when we look at Nvidia's chart year to date, it's up a measly 200%. Nvidia is creating the next AI revolution. MicroStrategy is collateralizing their stock to buy more Bitcoin. Do you think there's a bit of divergence in the market that is very weird compared to what Nvidia is doing versus what some of these other companies are doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now the market is just very excited overall. There's a lot of I don't follow MicroStrategy, or I forget what this company is called, too much, but I feel like there's a lot of excitement in the stock market and FOMO right now. I'm not saying every stock is like that. I do know for Nvidia, while it does look like crazy, I mean, forward PE ratio for next fiscal year is in the high 20s, which is not crazy, expecting them that I believe they're going to grow strong double digits this year. I mean, strong triple digits this year. They're going to grow strong double digits next fiscal year. And I believe that growth rate is still going to continue. And when I talk about double digits, I'm not talking about 20, 30%, which is pretty impressive. I'm talking about 60, 70, 80%. And I believe those kind of numbers are going to get lower, but they're still going to be higher than 40% for the at least 2026 as well.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I think the broader street feels Nvidia can keep growing. They're not going to be growing at 282% like they were 2 quarters ago, but they will keep growing. Guys, just looking at their net income yearly, I mean, explosion, right? 2024, they've done $29 billion so far in profits. Revenues have exploded. Shares outstanding have actually taken a little bit hit to the downside, which is nice. Their cash and debt is great. Operating expensive has slowly scaled at a much lower multiple compared to the revenues. Cash flow, absolutely incredible, especially their free cash flow. And we know that a lot of the hyperscalers have essentially said that they can't get enough of NVIDIA chips, which brings me to my next question. Does the market kind of know that at Google, Amazon, Meta, they're all competing to win AGI, which means NVIDIA has to have a good earnings? Otherwise, those companies couldn't have had a good earnings.
Yeah, I think if technology is evolving, if AI is evolving at the pace that is evolving right now, NVIDIA is going to continue to have strong demand until AGI finalizes. There might be the possibility, and like I said, while I am super, super bullish in the stock, I always try to understand kind of like the bearish case and try to always question myself, just so I don't like seem like a crazy bull. But one thing that I can see be a issue is if there's like some form of bottleneck in AI advancement. I don't see that happening right now, but if there's a slowdown in AI advancement, then it might give these cloud service providers a breather room of, hey, look, maybe this quarter, maybe next quarter, we can kind of tone it down a little bit. But I mean, there's things like that are things that I think about, but right now we're not seeing it in the market.
Yeah. MSTR, by the way, guys, just surpassing $500, now up 16% on the day. Robinhood at 36.22 and Bitcoin at 94,640. So speaking of AI advancements not going away anytime soon, we got this headline that broke literally 10 minutes ago. We kind of knew this.
Oh, wow.
We knew this a week ago, but it's now official. XAI has told investors they have officially raised $5 billion in funding, now being valued at $50 billion. That money is going to Nvidia, right? So that's got to be more bullish for Jensen.
Yeah, I mean, it just tells you. I mean, there's a heavy competition in the AI space. You have XAI, you have OpenAI, you have Anthropic, Google DeepMind. You have a lot of startups from all these OpenAI companies, OpenAI management that left the company and starting their own AI startups. So there's a huge demand for AI solutions right now. We do know that at the end of the day, not every AI company is going to win, but they're going to go out there and buy the shovels and whatever, the picks and axes of which is pretty much Nvidia at the moment. So it's pretty bullish news, and it just continues to showcase, hey, look, we're still in early innings. And I'm not sure if you saw yesterday, Microsoft is doing their Ignite event, and Microsoft's CEO kind of mentioned that, hey, look, we're still in catch-up phase of the AI space right now, of AI infrastructure. It's not like where we want to be. We're in catch-up phase. And the advancements that are happening in AI is at a compressed timeline compared to the cloud market that happened in the 2010s. And that was a huge, huge growth for the semiconductor space. Now, if this is happening at a compressed timeline, I think it's going to be very exciting for semiconductor investors.
Yeah, I think it's very, very, very exciting. And today, Jensen just has to show that demand is not slowing down. I see you guys in the chat saying, oh, he's using Legend now. I am using Legend. I like it. It's awesome. The one problem is you guys don't even know what ticker this really is, right? Like if I switch the ticker right here, you guys can't really see that I'm on MicroStrategy because there's not a quote tag where it says MSTR $500. So that's the one thing Hood has to change on this. Like if I go to Hood right now, it's hard to even know I'm on Robinhood's chart, right? Because it's just candlesticks. So if they have that quote tag, guys, I think we're retiring Weeble because the charting on this just feels a lot better. But we got to be able to.
There's no settings to add like the watermark on the back.
No, not yet. It's just a widget. All they have to do is add the widget, and once they do that, I think it comes.
I also kind of realized something that might get me excited during this earnings call. You were looking at Nvidia's cash. They have a huge amount of cash, a huge amount of free cash flow.
It's like 50 billion, right? Roundabout.
I think about 30 plus. I don't remember. I can't recall the last number.
50 billion in buybacks, but 30 billion in cash.
Yes. And I'll be curious if they're thinking about doing any acquisitions. I do think any crazy acquisition would be halted by regulators and stuff like that. But I would be curious to see what they're going to do with this money. Because even with all that money, it's not like they're growing their research and development like crazy. They're already evolving at such a rapid pace. So I want to see what they're going to do with that cash outside of that like 1 cent dividend that we get per share and the buyback. I want to see if they're going to do any acquisitions.
Yeah, I don't want the buyback because the buyback's putting a dent into the stock, right? Like this is almost 4. By the way, the price is 163 for 4 trillion. 163. Oh,
wow.
So
wow, that would be crazy. I think implied volatility mentions that if it's within that range, right? I think you
167 is the top, 130 is the bottom on the implied volatility. So if it gets to 4 trillion, the point is $50 billion of buybacks does nothing, but growing to get to 5 trillion definitely could do something. So we got data center, gaming, professional visualization, auto, OEM, and other. This is from Q2 2025, and it shows you all the way back to 2023. They were doing 3 billion, 3.8 a year and a half ago in data center. Last quarter, they did 26 billion. Are there any categories here that you expect to surprise to the upside or downside?
Today, no. The one I think investors should definitely keep an eye out is auto. Auto is in the low 300 millions, but if robotics, and I think robotics is definitely going to hit up pretty within at least the next 2 to 3 years, I think that automotive solution is going to go from 346 million to a few billion within the next few years. So that's going to be a huge growth driver from my thesis in the evolution of AI. So that's one to keep an eye out for long term. And for short term, for today, data center gonna outperform. Gaming, obviously, it's still a weak environment right now in the consumer space, and I think many people are waiting for the next generation of Nvidia chips for the consumer space, which should come out in January. So while we might see a nice boost from the AI PC sales right now, I don't think it's going to be anything too crazy. So data center is the only number for short term. For long term investors, I think the auto is going to be very, very important to keep an eye on.
All right, it's time for that segment, folks. Here we go. Nvidia pump or dump. The poll is live in the chat. Jose, if you want to do it in your chat as well, you can do it. It is live. We're going to give it until 4 o'clock because magically the poll reflects what the stock is doing somehow when it actually pumps or dumps. And I want everyone who can vote to vote. If you're driving right now, don't vote. Got you. You got to be safe. Yes or no, pump or dump. 87% already said yes. So the herd is bullish. Sometimes it goes against the herd, but maybe the herd is right on this one. I would vote yes as well. I think I'm bullish.
Yeah, man. We should have put third. I think I don't know. I'm gonna say neutral.
Jose, are you dump or
I'm
pump?
neutral. I'm neutral.
No, you got to pick one. Dump or
okay.
pump.
If I had to pick one, I think I would be pump. If it was only those two, and I was
Don't just say it because your audience is bullish on Nvidia. I know you want to say dump. You're gonna sound right.
I say neutral would be my real answer. My real answer would be neutral. Like I said, I think we know too much already unless they give us something crazy. I mean, I'm pretty sure most investors here expect earnings per share to be. I'm pretty sure every investor here expects revenue to be. I don't think anyone in either of our chats are gonna assume the opposite. So I think most people are expecting a B. And like I mentioned, because supply chain issues, it is almost physically impossible for Nvidia to do some crazy numbers. Obviously, they can be by 1-2 billion. That's insane, but it's not something that, in my opinion, would drive something super crazy for stocks to be like, whoa, we need to buy right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like the volatility of Bitcoin, right? Where it's like you think Bitcoin's running away from you, you got to get into MicroStrategy. This is like, hey, they can beat, that's good, but it's already at all-time highs. And if they really beat, then we got to get in. But if they don't really beat, then yeah, it could necessarily stay neutral. I fixed the poll. I said yes or no. I didn't fix the YouTube choices. So 81% of you still said yes. Now you said pump, 81% of you. So yes meant pump to everyone. And that's what we got right now on Nvidia. Again, 163, folks, is when we see this bad boy potentially hit $4 trillion. I don't think we've had a $4 trillion company before, right?
No, nope.
I don't think that's happened. Today, we're going to see the pump or dump on Robinhood Legend, guys. So we're going to get to see kind of how it reacts real time. And either the candle is going to go up or down, or maybe it stays flat.
I think there are going to be a few questions that investors are going to want to pay attention to today. I think some analysts are going to ask if, hey, look, any drama with Supermicro? I think that might be a topic of discussion of, hey, look, are you delaying any orders to any of your server makers?
So what are your thoughts for those that haven't heard your thoughts yet? SMCI, they got a new auditor. Is that good, bad, and does that affect Nvidia at all?
I mean, at the moment, it's leaning more to good. There's still a lot of uncertainties for Supermicro, right? They still have to submit those paperwork. So at the end of the day, it's still uncertain. But for them to have an auditor, it's showcasing that maybe this auditor believes that it's going to be kind of easy money for them. I also think this auditor was able to hold Supermicro by the balls, and that's why they waited to the last minute. They're like, hey, look, you're not going to find anybody. You're going to have to probably pay us a nice amount extra because we'll be doing this for you. In forms of Nvidia, I don't think it's going to be bearish or bullish in any way because there's plenty of server makers out there. There's Dell Technologies, there's HPE, there's Foxconn, there's Wiwin. I always mess that up, but there's so many Taiwanese overseas server makers out there. And because we are in a supply constrained market, Nvidia could just be like, hey, look, if Supermicro is a little bit iffy, maybe we can just send it somewhere else instead.
Right. And I think ultimately, the SMCI issue was bad. It went down almost 50%, kind of up 20%. From that level. SMCI currently right now is down 9% of the day. So investors are getting some cold feet, not only for Nvidia, but also if the SMCI audit actually is going to be something that's reasonable. Shout out to Derek Wall. Thank you for the gifted 50. For those that are new to the channel, you guys got 50 gifted memberships. Nolan, Dave, Yash, Woody, Ryan, Phil, Sahil, Carlos, all of you guys are now members of the channel, thanks to Mr. Derek Wall. Derek, thank you for that. Okay, so we talked about SMCI. We talked about kind of the expectations on the revenue and EPS front. Gross margins.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think those are below 75%? And if those come in a tad below than what the street wants, is that a nail in the coffin for NVIDIA?
I think we were expecting around 74 today, and for guidance to be a little bit lower for quarter four. So if it stays above that 70 point, I think it's okay. Obviously, anything below earnings expectations would be weak, but it's not something that I would really complain about. If we do get below 70s, and I don't expect that to happen, but if we do get that, I think we mentioned it in yesterday's stream or 2 days ago, it could mean that there might be some issues with the supply chain side. So I think gross margins could kind of give us some impact there. So anything below 70, major yellow flag. Anything above 70, I could really care less.
Yeah, above 70, I think we're good. I think there is a little bit of a headwind, but that headwind's not going to be enough to necessarily get below 70. Derek, thank you for the $100 super chat. Again, man, you do not have to do that. Thank you. He said, what up, DGen? So given he said, what up, DGens, put in the chat if you bought some calls on Jensen motherfreaking Huang. Put in the chat, pump or dump on NVIDIA. 79% of you guys say pump.
I have 85 of mine.
I have some friends who just texted me that that people are definitely loading up on NVIDIA right now, right before the results. And this is what happens. That's why the stock is moving like crazy right now, down about 1%, because everyone's like, you know what, screw it, we're going to get in, or you know what, screw it, we're shorting this thing. So everyone kind of has their own different play. I'm checking the call options right now, guys. So November 22nd, this is on Friday, the 150 call. Guess how many are open, Jose?
Honestly, I don't follow the option market too much, so I don't even know what a intelligent number would be to say.
Just guess. How many people do you think bought calls for NVIDIA 150?
10,000?
189,000. And 120,000 of volume today. Let's get even more bullish. 160, 90,000. Okay, it's a little less. Let's go to 170. Let's chill out a bit. 40,000. Let's go to 180. 24,000. Who's buying a $200 call?
That's insane.
30,000 calls are open for $200. Let's just be stupid. 250, 4,000 calls. You can buy a $250 call right now for $1. I kind of want to do
that. That's oh man. I mean, obviously, I would love NVIDIA to hit those levels. This is my number one position, but I'm staying balanced. I'm staying balanced today until we get some numbers.
It goes to show how much damn excitement ultimately there is in this stock right now for the fact that people are buying hundreds of thousands of calls right before earnings. So that is pretty damn incredible. Krupa, thank you for the $20 super chat. Hello to everyone except for the people who said dump. LOL, just kidding. This is my biggest position. I'm a big Jensen fan. Let's pump. Not selling my position no matter what happens because 2025 is looking great for NVIDIA. You know what NVIDIA has also done this year? It has given regular people the ability to make life-changing amounts of money because they kind of understood GPUs, AI, NVIDIA, Jensen. Maybe they heard about it from an interview and they're like, you know what? I'm going to trust this. Then it kept going up and up. They weren't selling and it kept going up. And then they started understanding the thesis because once you actually invest in something and it goes up, you have to be like, all right, what the hell do I own?
Yeah, you're forced to learn.
And I think a lot of people have just held this damn stock. And that is why it continues to do well.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, GPUs are pretty much used everywhere. So it was a great introduction to this AI space.
Agreed. All right, let's get some coverage by CNBC on NVIDIA. We're not going to give results for like another 15 minutes, but we will have Snowflake and Palo Alto right after the bell.
Tight little band for 4 or 5 days. Honestly, just waiting for the next incremental thing. Obviously, a big one coming after the close. But as the broad market is kind of just churning and rotating around, trying to stay above the election day close, which is where we are now by a couple of percent, I think there's this adrenaline junkie type action going on in a more speculative percentage point move in reaction to the numbers. That's what the options market says right now. It's 7% of the S&P. Mathematically, the 8% move is material to the overall index. And I do think it is also about, confirming of timelines of rollouts of next generation. All that stuff is going to get penciled into the 2025 outlooks, which we've already done to some degree, of the spenders, of the investors, the CapEx sources on all this stuff. So it matters a lot. In the short term, I think more tactically. In the longer term, meanwhile, outside of NVIDIA, semis have had a rough patch. So you just sort of wonder if there's going to be any coattails at all on what it might have to say.
No, that's a good point you make. Come back to you in a minute. Let's bring in Stacy Rascon now, a star analyst from Bernstein. It's good to have you with us on this important day. Most important thing going in is what?
Look, everybody's going to be looking at the data center number, both in the quarter and more importantly, I think, in the guide. That's all that's mattered for NVIDIA. I mean, for quite a while, like that's what matters. To build to that number, I mean, I think you alluded to it. It's the ramp of Blackwell that's supposed to start in Q4. People are going to want to see where that is, and importantly, like where that can go into the beginning of next year and beyond, especially as the crossover happens from Hopper to Blackwell. I think the other thing that people will be watching is gross margins. That was the issue that kind of hit the stock last earnings, and they sort of suggested gross margins were ticking down a bit into the back half just because of some of these new platforms are launching. They're very complicated. They've got more high bandwidth memory. They haven't optimized cost yet. And so people want to get some comfort that the gross margins are not going down too much, and that importantly, as you go into next year, more of those platforms ramp, that they aren't going down even further. But in general, I mean, what's going to drive everything is just what is that data center? Where do they pin the data center number into the end of the year? And that will sort of drive the exit rate when people start to shape their calendar 2025 estimates.
Yeah, I mean, the estimates, I don't know, the whisper number $38.5 billion maybe. But how significant are you thinking about this overheating story, and how meaningful, if at all, it might be? The work you've done on it yourself. What can you share with us?
It does not look like it was meaningful at all. And look, so that article came out, suggested that there were some overheating issues at the rack level that may potentially cause, delays down the line. Not long after it came out, like Dell and some others actually put out their own announcements that they were shipping. And then there was some news reports yesterday that suggested that issue, when it occurred, was several quarters ago. So it was old news anyways. You have to remember, as you're ramping these new platforms, and again, they're very complex, things like this are always happening. So the big question was it something, out of the ordinary, or was something more normal? It does seem like it was more normal. And again, it seems
Pretty much what you said, Jose. Overheating issue is not as big of a deal and seems more normal.
They were watching our stream before they got live, before they went live.
They were watching the real NVIDIA analyst trying to figure out what's going on. All right, folks, we got 2 minutes until the market close. By the way, breaking news, Gautam Adani has just been charged with massive fraud in New York. This is a really rich guy in India. So that's some pretty breaking news right before we get into NVIDIA. CNBC is announcing this right now. Don't know what the reason he has been charged for fraud for, but he has been charged with some fraud. All right, here we go. We got about 2 minutes. I see a bunch of you guys in the chat saying that you're buying calls. I got a bunch of you in the chat also saying someone from your stream. Jose said he just sold 5,000 shares at 145. So you got someone saying, you know what? I'm out. I'm taking my profits. Yeah. And that's what makes a market going back and forth, back and forth. Ray, it says, hi, Amid. Greetings from Serbia. It's so exciting to listen to and your guest. Real deal. I don't think we've ever had someone from Serbia.
Nice.
So thank you for being here. By the way, everyone in Jose's chat or my chat, put where you're watching from, what state, what country, where are you watching from. We are about to get into the end of the day. About 30 seconds left. We got 3 earnings, Snowflake, Palo Alto, and NVIDIA. We will get Snowflake and Palo Alto before NVIDIA. And then in about 10 minutes, we will get NVIDIA numbers. Jose, are you nervous?
Just nervous about
your net worth?
How excited I
am. Oh, boy. Here we go. By the way, Bitcoin right here at 94,000. Robinhood at 3606. You got CleanSpark down a little bit on the day. MicroStrategy, we got 10 seconds into the close. MicroStrategy right here at 4. Oh, wow, MicroStrategy getting dumped into the close. It was at 400. All right, folks, here we go. Once again on NVIDIA earnings, 4 p.m. The stock market is now closed. And now we wait.
I just want to say, man, it's pretty crazy the amount of support. I'm obviously that you getting your channel, and I barely do live streams, but I just want to say thank you to everybody watching. I always hope I provide some form of value to you guys and gals watching. So thank you for the support. So now back to NVIDIA.
Yeah, first, thank you everybody for being here again. You guys could be in a lot of places. You're spending it with us. It means the absolute world to us, and hopefully we can provide some value and analyze what's going on. All right, let's see how the market ended. MicroStrategy down up 10%. It was at 500, so it took a dip right before the end of the day. Bitcoin 94,000. Google ends down 1.2%. Nvidia, again, it's moving after hours, but not really meaningful movement because we don't have the numbers. SMCI was down 9% on the day. Marathon was up 14% on the day. Coinbase ended 1.4%. Robinhood did break 38 this morning, ended up 2.38% on the day at 36.08. You got the Qs ending kind of flat on the day, and the S&P actually ending flat but slightly green on the day. And now we wait for Snowflake and Palo Alto and Nvidia. Snowflake up a little bit after hours, and Palo Alto also up a little bit after hours, but we don't have the numbers yet.
Do you own any of these two?
I don't own any of these three. We sold some puts on Snowflake a while ago, but that was like before their last earnings. So now we're waiting for this. All right, so we're going to use Legend from Robinhood for the Snowflake chart. Again, I know you guys can't see the price, which is the only bad part about this. They just got to show us the prices. But we're going to put it on the daily interval at, let's do 30 seconds. Let's do 30 seconds, yeah. We'll do 1 second, and we'll see exactly what the move looks like on that 1 second. And then we will see what happens. All right, so that is Snowflake. We're waiting for Snowflake, waiting for Palo Alto, and then we are waiting for Nvidia. Again, Nvidia is going to be in a couple of minutes or probably 15 minutes. Snowflake.
Yeah, I think they do 4:15.
4:15. Okay, perfect. So we can wait till 4:15. We can choose not to throw up until 4:15. And we're looking for Snow and Palo Alto. Put in the chat if you own any of those three names: Snow, Palo Alto, or Nvidia. I know a lot of you guys own Nvidia, obviously, but Palo Alto and Snow are the other ones. Still big market, I don't know, market moving stocks, but important software companies. And those are some that definitely will have a bit of an impact. All right, so Snowflake, that's Snowflake on the daily chart. Snowflake opened today at about 133, right now at around 130. Again, up a little bit after hours, but no full numbers yet. MicroStrategy is down after hours. Bitcoin 94,433 currently right now. Doug says I got Nvidia and have Palo Alto through Hack. That makes sense. I actually like that ETF.
Is that a cybersecurity ETF?
Yeah. Do you own any CrowdStrike or anything like that? Or?
I do own CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike is, I think, the only cybersecurity that I own right now.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Hack is one of the ones I'm looking at in 2025 as like the way to get allocation to it. Pump or dump poll. We've got 3,000 votes. 79% say pump, 20% say dump. So we got an 80-20 split right now, currently.
I have 81-19 here, so pretty much same.
All right, so you got some people that are pretty damn excited when it comes to Nvidia. Numbers on Palo Alto, still don't have them yet. And it probably comes out at 4 or 5. So we got 2 minutes for Palo Alto. Yeah, that one's not out yet. And then Snowflake after hours. Any thoughts, Jose, on those two companies and if you think they could exceed expectations today?
You know, I always see Nvidia and Snowflake partnership in things for like data and storage, but I don't really follow Snowflake too much to really know that's the case. But sometimes if Nvidia partners with them, I usually get pretty excited. So there has to be some bullish thing out there for Snowflake. But I just don't know the company well enough.
I feel like Nvidia didn't partner with Snow. Snow partnered with Nvidia, and they use that good old Nvidia PR to get some, to get some attention. I feel like, but yeah, that's fair. That's fair. They definitely are one of the players in the data space. Okay, Snowflake up a little bit after hours. Palo Alto as well up a little bit after hours. Still waiting for the actual numbers.
Yeah, I wonder how semiconductor space is going to react to this too.
Yeah, so I mean that's a good question. SMCI, TSM, Lam Research. Do you think they all dump if Nvidia dumps?
I think so. I think most of these companies are. If let's say if we dump here, most of the growth scenario for a lot of these semiconductors, even the semiconductor equipment players, is just the growth of AI. So any pain in that thesis can definitely cause those stocks to drop. But I'm pretty excited about the semiconductor equipment space. That's where I'm pretty much adding most of my money right now.
All right, what you're seeing, guys, is a pump on Snowflake. You got a pump on Snowflake right here. That's the chart on the screen. 144. Snow is up. Palo Alto's down. Let me go to Palo Alto real quick. Palo Alto is down. Palo Alto is down. Down a little bit aggressive now. Palo Alto is down 5.27%. Palo Alto down 5.27%. That's the red candle you're seeing right here. Palo Alto was up going into the market close, and Snowflake was down a lot this year, so it kind of makes sense. Snowflake right here, 141, trying to hold that 140 level on Snowflake. Snowflake up 9% after hours, 142. It ended at 129. Let me try to get the numbers on that, but Snowflake is up and Palo Alto is down. Okay, Snowflake, 20 cents of EPS. That's a beat versus 15 cents street expected.
Nice.
942 million versus 898 million. That's a beat. That is not bad. You got a double beat for Snowflake on the top and the bottom line. The street likes it. Snowflake stock was down, I think, 40% year to date. So you got the market that's pretty excited right here on some stronger momentum and some stronger growth. Webull lets us see more information on the screen. It was, yeah, that's my only critique of Robinhood, of using Legend. I love the charting and I love the like real-time action. We just got to be able to see the ticker in depth to be able to see the price. So Snowflake right here up 11%. Palo Alto is now down 3%, recovering a little bit. So it was down 5%. Now it's down 3%. You see a little bit of a green candle right there, getting some of that momentum, but they are still currently down right now. Nvidia earnings is in 10 minutes, guys. Nvidia earnings still are on 10 minutes. We're waiting till 4:15 on Nvidia. Snowflake revenue, 942 million. Yeah, let's go to Snowflake's website. This is a name that I know. I mean, look, I'm not long. I kind of think Palantir is the better buy here, but it is oversold. So any good piece of news, you should see some momentum potentially. And it looks like that's what we're seeing. All right. So revenue for the quarter was 942 million, 28% year-over-year growth. That's up from, I think, 24% last quarter. So there is a reacceleration there. That's probably why the street's excited. 542 customers with trailing 12 months product revenue greater than 1 million. Remaining performance obligations is 5.7 billion. That's up 55%. That's really good. That means they have a lot of money to collect. CEO, Snowflake delivered a strong third quarter with...
Oh, whoa. Man down, man down.
Is that a sign that Nvidia is going to drop, bro? Is that a sign? Oh, no. Oh, my gosh. Oh, boy. Snowflake delivered a strong third quarter with product revenue of 900 million, up 30% year over year. Remaining performance obligations of 5.7 billion. Our obsessive drive to produce product cohesion and ease all of that use has built Snowflake into the easiest and most effective, or most cost-effective, enterprise data platform. That is what's leading us to win new logo after new logo, expand within our customer base, and displace our competition over again. Palo Alto still down 3%, and you got Snowflake right here up 13% right now. All right, makes sense. Snowflake doing its thing. Snowflake doing its thing. Mic drop moment by Amit. Now it's Jensen's turn. Yeah. So
yes, definitely.
I like reinterpretations. I would say people on my channel know how much I reinterpret stuff, aka BS stuff sometimes. But yeah, it instead of saying Nvidia is going to drop because the mic dropped, you say that Amit did a mic drop, and so will Jensen. All right, let's get some coverage on this when it comes to Snowflake and Palo Alto.
And that's on premise inside of enterprise databases.
Okay, I want to mention both Palo Alto Networks and Snowflake are out. We are going through the numbers. We'll bring them to you as soon as we get them. Palo Alto heading lower to the tune of about 7% at the moment, and Snowflake, the opposite direction, heading higher. It looks like more than 10% again at the moment. Of course, we got the earnings calls there, but really curious to see what's driving that, Paul, especially in light of what we were talking about just yesterday at Microsoft Ignite, with so much of the focus being on data and AI. Do we have... Okay, Palo Alto Networks earnings are out. Steve Kovac has the numbers. Steve.
Hey there, John. Yeah, and shares are down here despite beats on the top and bottom line.
Does Nancy own Palo Alto?
Here of $1.56 adjusted.
What is that?
Does Nancy own Palo Alto?
Yeah, Nancy owns Palo
okay.
Alto. Yeah.
So Nancy stock, got it.
Nvidia in about 5 minutes, guys.
Street was looking for $1.48 adjusted. Revenues also just a slight beat here at $2.14 billion. Street was looking for $2.12 billion. We still see shares falling here. It looks like guidance is weighing down a bit. We'll be digging through these numbers to get back to you with more, John.
All right, Steve, thank you. Don't miss, by the way, Jim Cramer's exclusive interview with Palo Alto.
Okay, so the mic officially, I don't even know what. You guys should still be able to hear me, right? The mic, I don't know what's thing.
Oh, good.
All right, the mic is here, guys. So it's a mic drop that's going to stay as a mic drop for what we got. All right, so Snowflake, good numbers. Market's excited about that. You got it up 12% right here. Call buyers are probably happy if they had 135 or 140 calls. Palo Alto still slightly down. A little bit of a miss on the top and the bottom, down about 4.6% right there, recovering just a little bit. Nvidia still don't have the numbers, but it is down 1% after hours as people are waiting. I'm going to close the poll in like 2 minutes. We got 80 to 20 pump or dump. And so the pumps are going to have to see if we actually pump in the next couple minutes. Mic drop, going to the moon, 40 billion in revenue. Dude, if
that would be insane.
If that's the case, I'm dropping the mic before Palantir's earnings, before Robinhood's earnings. Like, we are dropping the mic every single time if that actually happens. Amit, how are you seeing this chart? What is yellow? Chad, what's up? Thank you for being here. Appreciate you, Chad. This one's a little bit more yellow versus green. Okay, so Bitcoin at 94,000 right here. Robinhood as well, a little green after hours. Marathon, a little green as well. And then Nvidia just went flat. So it was down 1%. Now it is flat currently after hours. Jose, what question would you ask Jensen if you were an analyst on the call?
When I'm just curious, when does he think we're gonna get consumer humanoid robots in his timeline? So it would be more questions for long term to understand where this market is going, and obviously he's in the forefront, and just kind of get more answers about the healthcare market, because for drug discovery or drug engineering, how he's calling it, he believes this is a huge growth opportunity for Nvidia, but they don't really mention it too much during the earnings call. So I would definitely want to hear more about that, and questions from there as well. That's actually true. I would leather jacket question.
Did you know about this brand called Winston Simona? Williams Simona. It's some luxury brand that was up 20% today, and they sell vegan leather. And I didn't know what vegan leather was. And then everyone was like, your Tesla's made out of vegan leather. I was like, what? Tesla uses vegan leather? Basically plastic. So it was an interesting revelation. But yeah, I would ask what brand is. No, I wouldn't ask him what. I think he would be like, get the hell out of this call if you ask me what brand my jacket is. Grumpy, thank you for the $20 super chat. Nancy Pelosi owns a lot of Nvidia, I believe, in the greatest investor of all time. So this is also really interesting, Jose. Do you put any stock, see what I did there, into the idea that Nancy Pelosi owns this name, therefore it can't really fail?
No, not at all. I barely follow. I barely have time to follow the stocks that I own. That I can't follow anybody else. So I normally I could care less about things like that. Obviously, in the short term, you kind of get that nice bullish pressure. I think at the end of the day, is the only thing that matters is my thesis, right?
That's actually fair, dude. The fact that you said, no, I don't care about anything else other than your thesis, that's like, I feel like that's the way to ultimately have conviction. Yeah, that is absolutely very fair. All right, so we got the Snowflake results. Let's bring that up real quick, guys. We got Nvidia in 2 minutes, and then we'll see if the earth stops for a moment.
Shares are surging in overtime, John, as the company beat on its bottom line and top line, a 5-cent beat on earnings, with revenues coming at $942 million. The estimate was for $897 million. I would point out product revenues up 30% nearly year over year. Some bullish commentary from the new CEO, Sridhar Ramaswamy, who says our obsessive drive to produce product cohesion and ease of use has built Snowflake into the easiest and most cost-effective enterprise platform. He also discusses that they are displacing competition over and over again. And going into this earnings report, one of the key concerns was that there is heightened competition in the cloud data analytics space from the hyperscalers like Amazon and Microsoft that are spending a lot of money to be a winner in this space. Clearly, results here coming in much better than expected, with shares up about 13% in overtime. I'll send it back to you guys.
All right, Seema Modi, thank you. And I will be speaking.
Guys, is it 420 or 415? Do you know, Jose?
Usually it's around there. Maybe I usually think it's 415, but it could definitely be 420.
Okay, well, we'll find out right now in like 30 seconds if there's a big move or not. And we'll see. If not, maybe we have to wait 5 minutes. Dude, everyone's saying 420? All right, cool. So we got
time.
6 minutes left to just bask in the glory of what it means to be an investor. You know, I think what it means to be an investor is to have this type of gut-wrenching, stomach-pitting anxiety, right? Like, this is what it means. If you're not going to invest in index funds, if you're going to invest in individual equities, much less derivatives of those equities, you kind of got to go through this for the potential of the upside.
Yeah, I mean, I think investing is the funnest thing. It really is. Obviously, I don't have the kind of equity to go into Shark Tank and bet millions and millions of dollars, but this is the second best thing to that. I feel like a Shark Tank every time like a Shark Tank host, every time I'm looking at a company and see, hey, would I spend my money on you or would I not?
Yeah, no, I agree. It is just one of those things where you never know what's going to happen. And earnings are crazy because like it's a gamble every time on earnings. You could think you have all the numbers, you got everything right. All these analysts literally get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to make sure that Nvidia, that they understand Nvidia, and then they could still be wrong, right? So a lot of this ultimately comes down to what people expect when it comes to Nvidia. Yeah, so we got about 4 minutes, guys. Here is what Wall Street's thinking about Nvidia. I shared this morning, but for those that are new here, Wall Street is pretty bullish on Nvidia, and this is a list of all the price targets that we have for how the street is thinking.
Do you have the whisper numbers? I always hear like the whispers are a little bit more on the bullish side, right?
So I heard, I could be wrong, but I heard the whisper was like 33.5, which Wall Street is expecting 33.1, so that would be, more than expected. I think they need to get to 34 to really, get things excited, but we're going to have to see. Okay. Stifle, buy it, 180. Truist, buy it, 167. KeyBank, buy it, 180. Bank of America, just buy it and it'll go up. Morgan Stanley, buy it, 160. Wedbush, our boy Dan Ives, 160. Buy it. Susquehanna, 180. HSBC, buy it, 200. Evercore, buy it, 189. Jefferies, buy it, 185. Oppenheimer, buy it, 175. Raymond James, buy it, 170. I don't think we've ever seen the entire street get behind a name like this. Does that make you nervous or excited?
A little bit of both, right? I mean, I always hate when things get overcrowded. But I think with NVIDIA, it's rightfully so right now. Obviously, anything can change, but I think right now, rightfully so, there's that great excitement for AI.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, like either all these guys have to be wrong or, they're all right. And I don't know, when all of them agree on something, yes, that historically that hasn't worked on a lot of times. But I do think with the amount of data they have, they could be right. Here's what HSB said. They have the highest price target. NVIDIA's data center momentum remains robust into fiscal year 2026 with hyperscaler 2025 CapEx accelerating. Basically, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Meta spending more. We expect third quarter sales of $35.3 billion. So maybe that's your whisper number, over 32.5. Yeah. With strong fourth quarter and first quarter sales growth, Blackwell supply chain concerns are easing, but expectations remain high, which means NVIDIA's got to really beat to continue to get that momentum.
Yeah, I mean, NVIDIA has no competition at the moment. They're going to continue to sell those chips.
Yeah, and ultimately, they just have to show that they are doing what they said they were going to do, which is continue to sell those chips, and they should be in a good spot. We got 10,000 people on my stream right now. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And Jose, I think you got about 6,000 as well. So 16,000 people here. Thank you for spending your time with us.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
hit that subscribe button.
Yeah, please make sure to like and subscribe. If my mom is here, hi, Mom. How are you doing? It's pretty incredible, dude. I think it goes to show the retail investor movement is real. People don't really trust a lot of the mainstream sources. They want to get alternative opinions. And also it says Google's growing, bro. And everyone's bearish Google, but it shows that Google's growing. So it shows that things are going well for them. All right, here we go. 1 minute, folks. 1 minute to determine the fate of the stock market. I don't want to be dramatic, but it is kind of true. 1 minute, and we are going to see, Jose, I'm on the chart. So if you could get the numbers up, you can.
Yep. I'll be looking.
I will be glued to the chart, assessing the traffic lights of red or green. Or maybe yellow if we see nothing. And it's time to figure out what Jensen's got in store. All right, here we go. Last 20 seconds. Here we go. And I know if you guys have it in the chat, you'll probably put it in the chat as well. And we will get the numbers pretty soon and see how this plays out.
And then remember, the earnings call is at 5 o'clock. I don't know if you mentioned that already, but
yeah. So we'll have 40 minutes of analyzing the actual earnings. And then we're going to see Jensen speak. I love your argument as well about robots. I would ask him about that same question because I think that's a massive tailwind for them. And that could be big. Yeah. All right, 420.
Oh, let's see.
420. We are either going to see a red or a green candle. We are either going to see a red or a green candle right here on NVIDIA. Oh, that's an initial red. That's an initial red. We got an initial red. We got an initial red. We got an initial red. How much is the red? Hold on. How much is the red? Down 3%. We got a red. Now it's going down more. Now it's going down more. You see
boom.
those red candles. They keep going down. It's like a staircase down. Is the bottom in at 140? Nope, 139. We are there. We're at 139. We're at 135, 39.
I still don't see numbers out.
Someone saying 35.1 billion. If they got 35 billion, this is a little bit of a stupid sell-off, in my opinion. If they actually got 35 billion. A little bit of recovery. There's a little recovery. There you go. You guys see those green candles popping up right there. 140, now back to 141. Jose, you might be right. It might be kind of neutral. Maybe we don't get. Oh, now we're tanking. Now we're tanking.
Oh my goodness.
Look at this thing, dude. It tanked to 138. Then it did like this little mountaintop. Now it's going back down. Do we break the bottom? 138.20. If it goes below 138.20, it's back in a downtrend. Okay, I think someone has the numbers here. Jose, you can confirm it. Adjusted EPS, 81 cents versus 74 cents. That is a 7-cent beat. That is incredible. That is not bad.
All right, we got the numbers, yeah.
Okay, go ahead. You can read them.
Quarter 3, 81 cents. And I forgot what was estimated. And then we have revenue of $35 billion. So over that, almost $2 billion beat there as well. So up 94% year over year. So $35 billion and 81 cents on non-GAAP, which is great. Gross margin stayed up at 75%, which again, we were expecting a little bit of a drop, but only down 7 percentage points compared to last quarter. Now, let me just take a closer look at guidance really quick.
NVIDIA is now down 5%, guys. Go ahead, Jose.
Guidance for, maybe this is why it's down. Guidance for quarter 4 is 37.5 billion. I think the street was, the high end number was closer to 38, I believe, or 39, if I recall correctly. But that's still strong growth in all aspects. So to me, any numbers right now wouldn't really scare me, even if we see a sell-off right now.
The street's upset about 37.5 billion? Really? Really? That's what the street's upset about? I mean, I get the expectations, but that is a weird one to be upset about here.
And then gross margins, I forget what was estimated for guidance. It's about 73, 73.5. So again, we're seeing weaker guidance than this quarter, but that was expected again because of the ramp up of new products. And it's still above even 72.5, which is still pretty strong.
All right, so data center 30.7 billion, gaming 3.2 billion, visualization 486 million, auto 449 million, OEM 97 million, total 35 billion. Again, the street expected on the high end 33. That's a $2 billion beat. Like we got to give it up to Jensen. That's a he wasn't lying about Blackwell demand being off the charts. But I agree, if their guidance is a little bit lower, then that's enough to get the street to be upset.
Yeah, I'm just going to be quiet. I'm reading a few things here just to see if maybe there might be something that pops out that we should know right now.
Okay, I think it's recovering a little bit. Hold on. Where is it? No, yeah, it was down 6%. Now it's down 1%. You see this?
Networking revenue was 3.1 billion, up 20% year over year. Again, not a fun market, but it's one that you definitely see growth opportunities. And the 3 billion is pretty exciting there as well.
Okay, I have the press release. I'm going to read from the press release for the next couple minutes, but we are seeing a little bit of a recovery right here on NVIDIA. Here we go. Record quarterly revenue of 35.1 billion, up 17% quarter over quarter, 94% year over year. Data center revenue 30.8 billion, up 112% year over year, 17% quarter over quarter. Jensen Huang, the age of AI is in full steam, propelling a global shift to NVIDIA computing. Demand for Hopper and anticipation for Blackwell in full production are incredible as foundation model makers scale pre-training, post-training, and inference. Mm-hmm. AI is transforming every industry, company, and county. Enterprises are adopting agentic AI. We've heard a lot about agents to revolutionize workflows. Industrial robotics investments, humanoid robotics, are surging with breakthroughs in physical AI or embodied AI. And countries have awakened to the importance of developing their nation AI and infrastructure, aka sovereign AI. Gross margin 74.6, down from 75.1. That could be a reason the street's a little upset, but they did guide for that. So I don't think the street should be too upset about that. Mm-mm. OpEx is up a little bit. Operating income 21 billion versus 18.6 billion. Net income 19.3 billion versus 9 billion last year. It's not bad. Not bad at all. The net income margin they have 19 divided by 35. 54% net income margin. Last quarter, they had a 53%. So, I mean, they're increasing their net income margin. Well, it's about 1%. So it's nothing crazy, but still they are becoming more profitable on a net income margin basis. Gross margin at 75%. That is down a little bit from 75.7. Again, operating income 23.2, net income 20 billion right here. And then you got diluted earnings per share at 81 cents on a non-GAAP basis. Anything stand out to you, Jose, from seeing this?
I mean, just cash from there. No, I was just looking again at some of the other commentary. So super interesting. Cash and marketable securities up to 38.5 billion, up from 34 a quarter ago. So this company's still kind of hoarding that cash. They did about 11 billion in share repurchase, which isn't much. But we can see still strong cash, and cash flow from operations was 17.6 billion. So what, more than 50% of cash flow from operations based on revenue? I think those are some crazy numbers still.
So stocks down 2%. It tried to recover and go green, was not able to do that. I agree with you. They do have a decent amount of cash, which is not bad at all. Did they buy back any shares? Let's see.
About 11 billion.
Okay, so they spent basically 11 out of the 50 billion they authorized.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's not too bad. And no one really cared too much about how much they were going to buy back. I look, the top line number they needed to beat was 33 billion. They brought in 35. You're a big shareholder in Nvidia for the past couple of years. I would imagine you're impressed by that.
By which one? Sorry, I was looking at some numbers. Repeat that.
You're impressed by 35 billion top line.
Yes, for sure. All numbers were great. I mean, it's outperformed like we mentioned earlier on. I think it was going to be in both revenue and earnings per share. It wasn't going to be anything crazy because at the end of the day, this company has not a supply chain issue, but a supply chain constraint. And TSMC can't make as many chips as they need. So again, Wall Street is getting better. Not perfect, as we see, because they beat on revenue and earnings, but they're getting better at understanding how these are going to do. And I think that's why now maybe the market is expecting even more from Nvidia, but physically they can't.
Yeah, I would agree. I forgot to close the poll, but 77% of you guys said pump, 23% said dump. It's not really doing a pump or dump. What do you guys say in the chat? Put a 1 in the chat if you think these numbers are fantastic. Put a 2 if you're unimpressed. Unimpressed meaning you knew they would be good, but you wanted them to be better. Let's see what kind of the sentiment is from everybody else and see what it's looking like. I'm pretty damn impressed, dude. I'm pretty damn impressed. I know the street's
a lot of ones here. Yeah.
All right, good. So we're not crazy. Everyone's pretty impressed on these numbers. These are not bad numbers at all.
Yeah. And I mean, just like we talked about it earlier today, I think it was going to be more of a moneymaker for option sellers, because those are the ones that are, if the stock stays around flat, I personally would consider a 2 or 3% for Nvidia flat, either direction. Even if it went up 3%, I would say that's within a flat range, based on the excitement of the stock. So I think right now it's going to be definitely another day for option sellers, unless we get something crazy during the earnings call.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. The only number is that guidance number that is upsetting people, but I don't think that's the biggest deal in the world. Let's see what CNBC is saying about it, and then we'll keep going with our coverage.
Maybe it was from you that there would need to be a $2 billion revenue beat in order for this thing to move higher. How much, though, is it important to get the full context of these numbers, especially because there are all these concerns about incoming quarters? How big is the pipeline? If they say some positive things about that, that could have an impact on the continuing reaction.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. When I was talking about the guide, I was more of a short term, like in the next couple of days. But later on in the call, they usually guide for a quarter ahead.
We got the details ready. Got to stop you there, Paul. Yep. Christina Partsinevelos has the numbers. Christina.
Yeah, we're just getting the top and bottom lines right now. Numbers. We are getting EPS of 81 cents per share. That is higher than the 75 cents estimates on revenues of 35.08 or $35.1 billion, which is also higher. And I'm going to come back with more of the data center numbers and guidance in just a moment.
All right.
Back over to you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Christina. Paul, I'll let you finish.
Yeah, so I think, in the call, hopefully there'll be more clarity on looking ahead to next year. What's the Blackwell production going to be? We know demand is there. Whatever they can make, they'll, will be.
Okay, let's look at the rest of the market because we got pretty excited. We didn't take a look at what else was happening right here. So Nvidia now down. Yeah, Nvidia now down 4% right here. So the market's really not liking it. SMCI's down 2%. Snowflake's up 16%. So congrats to anyone who got Snowflake. Palo Alto down 6%. Bitcoin 94,000. Robinhood at 3607 after hours. Semis, look at that bloodbath. Look at that bloodbath. on the left-hand side of the screen. Micron down 1%, Dell down 1%, Lam Research down, Marvell down, TSM down, Qualcomm down, and Broadcom down, Intel down, SMCI down 2%, AMD down 1%, Nvidia down 3.35%. Palantir, which kind of trades with Nvidia sometimes, down 2% as well currently right now.
Yeah. So I do think, me personally, if we could continue to see a red day onto the semis tomorrow, I would be, I don't know, even with a 3% drop, I wouldn't be a heavy buyer of Nvidia right now. But there's a lot of semiconductor stocks that I believe are sitting pretty attractive, and this would just kind of create better buying opportunities for me, in my opinion.
When do you get excited? So what price do you feel like the street is really stupid? 130, 125?
For me, the quarter before, my number was around the low 100s. And again, I'm not saying we're going to get to these levels. Just kind of quick context, Nvidia is already my biggest position in my portfolio, so I tend to be very, very patient when I buy. For me, though, anything between 115 to like 125 is probably when I would start dollar cost averaging again. I'm not saying we're going to get there, but those would be my levels.
I mean, if we get to 115, 125, that forward PE starts falling, I think, mid-20s or below. And that becomes a stupid forward PE if that happens. So I agree. Willis Anderson, thank you for the $2 super chat. He said, not impressed. Was price beyond perfection? Was Nvidia price beyond perfection to you?
I mean, the stock is only down, what, 3-4%. So I don't think so. If it was priced to perfection, I think we would have seen a heavier stock price. I think, unfortunately, if you even bought puts right now, it's not much. You probably paid a lot more in your volatility premium or your IV premium. So best of luck to any purchaser of options right now.
Yeah, if you sold options, and we talk a lot about selling options on the channel, this is the benefit, because for the buyer of a put or a call, you need the stock to get down to your strike. For the seller, you kind of just don't need it to do anything, and you should be able to benefit off the volatility. 145.89 right here on Nvidia, or sorry, 140. It's down 3.35%. As you guys can see on the chart right here, we were 146 right at the close. Then we came all the way down to 137, came all the way back up to like 145, and now we're treading back down. So I think Jensen is going to have to address some of these issues in the earnings calls around the guidance being a little bit lower than expected and the gross margins, even though, they already guided for the gross margins being lower. I don't know what the analysts are going to ask that is so different from what we're seeing right now that is causing the down 4% move. And
that's what I'm thinking right now. It's like, what kind of questions can we get out of Jensen that can really help us understand this a little bit more? I mean, I think at the end of the day, Jensen's going to come out. He's going to say, hey, look, Blackwell is in full production. We're ramping up. We're going to expect multi-billion dollars in Q4 and then follow on to fiscal year of 2025. I don't know what else we're going to hear that could kind of change anything unless some massive announcement comes from the earnings call.
Sean, thank you for being here in the chat. He says, what is the volume? Oh my. Jose, how much volume do you think there is on the stock right now?
Again, another number that I don't know what are after hour numbers. So
in total today, it's 278 million shares are being traded back. Probably that number is probably up like 30-40 million since the numbers earnings came out. Got a lot of money trading hands right here, trying to figure out what happened. So last time we had earnings, we had the kind of same reaction, down 4 or 5%. Mm-hmm. And then by the time the earnings call was done, it was down 9%, and it bottomed at like 102. Do you think this initial reaction can lead us down another 10% again, back into the 125s?
It's not impossible. I do think what's going to happen, though, within the next 2 to 3 days, we're going to continue to see analysts increase their price target or reaffirm their price target. I'm going to say nothing from the press release that I have right now. And again, I could care less about price targets, but obviously the market likes it, and it kind of drives a bullish or bearish sentiment in the short term. I think right now analysts are looking at these numbers. They're going to say, hey, look, my thesis is still on track. So within the next few hours, within the next 24 hours, we're going to continue to see either reiterations of the price targets and reiterations of buying things. So I don't think there's anything right now that would cause anything differently. And I think that could cause at least maybe some bullish action in the next few days.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an incredible quarter. I'm very interested to see kind of how Jensen leads the way in talking about different opportunities like sovereign AI, humanoid robotics. This is the first time, and that's why I think the stock ultimately can recover from this, and we don't have to fall down back to 120, especially given the Trump administration, kind of the bull market that we're in, and the deregulation that's coming across the entire industry. You're seeing right here, for the first time, at least on the earnings press release, I think they're mentioning something like industrial robotics, breakthroughs in physical AI, sovereign AI. They've talked about this stuff all the time, but they're kind of putting it front and center for millions of people to realize robotics is real. Sovereign AI is real. Saudi Arabia, Japan, Korea, all the people, they want to control their data in a meaningful way. They need AI. They need GPUs to do that. And then enterprise workflows. We've heard Salesforce talk about agentic AI with Agentforce. We've heard Snowflake talk about this. Microsoft talked about this yesterday. Palantir has been talking about integrating LLMs into meaningful agents. So I guess they're saying we're the backbone of all of that. And if you guys are giving Palantir, Snowflake, and Salesforce and Microsoft a multiple, you damn sure better be giving us a multiple.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, at the end of the day, the multiple for Nvidia is not that crazy. Like let me just pull up real quick just so I can see the numbers. I think these are based on closing prices, but forward 1 year, which is next fiscal year. So what's that? We just finished Q3. So about a year and 3 months from now, forward PE ratio is 34.6. It's not like, obviously some people might say that's crazy. I mean, we have cloud service providers in the mid 20s, but it's not like this is a speculative play right now. I mean, 34.6 is nothing too crazy to scream overvalued at right now.
I would agree. 100%. All right, let's get some more coverage and then we will keep going from there. We got the call, guys, in 23 minutes.
Revenue 37.5 billion, higher than what the street was anticipating, but still lower than the whisper numbers that I was seeing, anywhere between 38.5 to 39 billion dollars. The CFO also saying demand for the Hopper architecture is strong. Our H200 offering grew significantly in the quarter. Blackwell production shipments are scheduled again to begin in the fourth quarter of fiscal 2025 and will continue to ramp in fiscal 2026. So again, that was a lot of this was riding on the Blackwell shipments. A lot of people were on, the street was anticipating shipments to really ramp up in the end of next year, their fiscal year. So that's exactly what she's reiterating. Again, Blackwell production shipments are scheduled to begin in the fourth quarter of fiscal 2025 and will continue to ramp in 2026. So you can see stock did drop initially, but still almost 1% lower at the moment, slightly below the whisper number, but the guidance was a beat for Nvidia in the January quarter.
Christina, thank you. Patrick, I know I just interrupted you. I'm going to go back to you to finish your thought and also react to some of the guidance numbers we got. We also got Q4 non-GAAP gross margin. It looks like 73.5%, which is basically in line, slightly better than street expectations as well. But the Blackwell shipment guidance, what do you make of that?
I mean, it's positive, but I also want to reinforce that it's small. The clear majority of what the company is shipping now and in the next quarter is Hopper. And you're going to see a gradual ramp from Hopper to Blackwell. And, the company had a couple things it needed to show. It needed to show the gross margins weren't impacted. Essentially, you have a different architecture that could have weighed on that. But then again, it could have been made up by market expansion, the entry into networking. What I'm seeing from my industry analyst perspective is all positive, all expected. Every hyperscaler that I talk to cannot get enough of these chips quickly enough. TSMC is sold out for the next year and a half. That gives pricing power to Nvidia. I just don't see how they lose.
All right. So, I mean, I kind of agree with that analyst at the end of the day, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I think all of us agree that the monopoly that Nvidia has with their pricing power is not going away anytime soon. And the growth is there to show it. If it's down 1 or 2% from what they expected, I don't know if that's enough to take it down. And we're kind of seeing it recover right here, guys. Nvidia now down 2%. At the most, it was at 139.50. So call it down about 5.2%. Getting bought up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if these numbers scare you, I don't think, I don't know. If these numbers scare you, then you're probably in the wrong company, because I think numbers were pretty strong. I don't think anything looks crazy right now. Obviously, in the short term, price can move any direction. But if you're a long-term investor on Nvidia, these numbers are nothing to cry about.
You got Sean right here that says, I work globally in AI. Everyone is trying to build and they need talent, chips, and compute. I think that's also the thesis, right? It's like NVIDIA is cheaper than a lot of growth stocks that are out there right now because of attacking that global demand. And although, the market thinks, when is this going to kind of collapse? The guidance that they're giving every quarter, 30 last quarter, they did 30 billion. The street wanted 28. This quarter, the street wanted 33. They did 35. Next quarter, they're guiding for 37, probably going to do 39, right? It's just like, this is not stopping anytime soon. And I think the sell-off here is kind of just idiosyncratic, algorithmic, kind of short-term in nature, not really recognizing what they're doing. Or people are just saying, you know what, we're not going to let it go to 4 trillion today.
Yeah, I think that's also another kind of thesis fighting NVIDIA. It's like, hey, look, this is already the world's largest company. How can it grow any larger than that? But I'm pretty sure that was the thesis for the first $1 trillion company, for the first $2 trillion company, and so on and so forth. So if AI is as really revolutionary as we're hearing from all these big tech players, and like Chris just mentioned, it's more than just AI, but obviously that's a huge growth opportunity right now. The accelerating market is a huge opportunity, and AI is going to fuel everything else, from robotics, from space travel, from healthcare, from sovereign AI, smart cities, smartphones, the list goes on and on. So that is something that can really, really grow the innovation that NVIDIA has.
Yeah, I think we are entering into a world of abundance. And it's a world of abundance that most of us can't wrap our heads around because of how much innovation is happening. And I think you either believe in that world or you don't. And if you don't believe in that world, that's fine. But if you do believe in that world, there's going to be winners of that world. I think Tesla's going to be one of the winners. NVIDIA is going to be one of the winners. And the backbone, the infrastructure that makes that world possible are currently GPUs. And the byproduct of those GPUs, one of the biggest ones, is LLMs. They only are going to get better and better and better, which means the GPUs need to get better, which means that demand is there. So ultimately, you either have that worldview or you don't. Maybe you think the stock is cheap or the stock is expensive. That's a bit more subjective. But if you have that worldview, it makes sense to have some exposure into that ecosystem of AI, and NVIDIA is one of the ways to get there. For those that have a very, let's just say, juicy average, I think someone here in the chat said they have a $32 average. Here's the question for those with those, for the people with amazing averages. Do you sell on this earnings? Do you sell? Would you sell if you have like a $30 average, a $5 average? Jose probably has like a 2-cent average or something. Like if you
wish it's in the teens.
It's in the teens. Oh my gosh. Dude, if I was you, I would look at my portfolio every morning, just being like, I did that. I would show my wife every morning. I know you got a wife. You'd be like, look, babe, next time you're mad at me, do you know what I did 5 years ago when you were doing something? I was buying freaking NVIDIA.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, like my first buys were obviously in the, I don't know, not obviously, but we're in the single digits. But most of my buys were in the teens. But my first buys, coming out of college, not much money, were in the single digits.
It's the beauty of the stock market. It's the beauty of the compounding machine that is the stock market. All right, so I'm reading the comments. Pretty much no one has the sentiment of selling. No one does. And I think that's an important question because for the OG holders of NVIDIA, this, you got to ask yourself, do you stay or you leave? We had someone who sold a bunch of shares at 145 right before the earnings call happened in the chat. So I would imagine some of you guys want to sell, but it seems like the majority of you are saying, nope, we are riding this to the end. Mm-hmm. Not bad. All right, let's go back to CNBC, get some more coverage, and then we'll keep going from there. Call is going to be in 15 minutes.
Santoli, want to get you back in here. The gross margin guide for the fiscal fourth quarter from NVIDIA, 73.25 plus or minus 50 basis points. And sure, the top line guide is a modest beat, kind of in line, but I can't help but couple that with this snowflake report and the ambition behind it, right? Because all of that data flowing into the transformed data center is part of what ends up feeding AI. So that, in a way, is positive pipeline indication, demand indication for the likes of NVIDIA, no?
I mean, obviously, directionally it is. I think it's kind of remarkable that we're slicing it so thin in terms of, what's been guided in a quarter that's, already a few weeks old, and just shows you again how the tight tolerances of how this stock has come into this number. I do find it interesting pretty minimal movements. The winners initially on the reflex are the sellers of all those juiced options that were implying an 8% move. That could change. No doubt on the call, there's going to be a lot of big picture bullishness. The mission is not yet complete. We're going up and away. But I do find it interesting that initial little sell-off attempt was bought. So a lot of jockeying and a lot of people really, it's the machines fighting each other over small increments of near-term guidance. I'm interested to see if you get it fleshed out in terms of, through next year and what they're seeing so that somebody can make a more coherent fundamental case.
Okay, I want to get back to Christina Parts-Neveles for more from this report.
Yeah, the CFO commentary is on the website right now, and there's a line that really stood out. Both Hopper and Blackwell systems, those are their two iterations of the GPUs, have certain supply constraints, and the demand for Blackwell, that's the latest iteration, is expected to exceed supply for several quarters in fiscal 2026. So that's a warning right there that supply is still going to be constrained for several quarters.
That's a good issue. I mean, investors don't love that, but it's better than them not wanting, people not wanting to buy Hopper. So that is a good problem at the end of the day. It seems like demand is not going anywhere but up.
Still don't know if that's going to mean a push out or any delays, but to me, that sounds like a warning, possibly too, why you're seeing this movement downwards for the stock. Guys?
All right. Christina, thank you. And shares are down about 3% right now, but bouncing around, as you can see right there on your screen. Paul, I want to get your reaction to everything we've just heard in this report, including the fact that demand is outpacing supply. We knew that was a dynamic, and it sounds like it continues.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty incredible that the company is raised guidance by, $500 million, and that's disappointing. But it just goes to show you how strong this stock has been. I mean, they've routinely raised guidance by closer to $2 billion or $1 billion or more. So this it's short. And I think to what Mike was saying earlier, maybe the reason the stock isn't down more on that marginal, revenue guide higher is the fact that it hasn't done anything in 5 months. It's basically right where it was 5 months ago. So it has had some time to, rest, so to speak, and, let the market catch up with it.
And got to keep in mind, of course, we're also expecting a new platform from them pretty much every year. So there is that. Paul, Patrick, thanks for joining us. Mike, see you in a bit. Up next, much more reaction.
All right, so we got the call in about 13 minutes. What do you make of that supply constraint argument, and did you already know that was happening, Jose?
Yeah, I mean, that's at the end of the day, I think that's going to be the case for multiple quarters. I mean, we've heard from TSMC that they can't keep up with the demand that they're seeing from their customers, aka Nvidia, especially on the AI accelerator side, because of pretty much advanced packaging. So I think I don't necessarily see that as a warning. I mean, at the end of the day, it means just Nvidia, if they continue to increase their guidance, it means that they continue to get better capacity from TSMC, which is bullish. But even if they continue to get more capacity, they still can't keep up with demand. So what you really want to see is every single quarter is see an improvement or increasement in guidance in guidance for the next revenue, right? If we ever see a flat line, in my opinion, in that quarter revenue growth, I think that's when things are going to get really, really scary for the stock. But I think TSMC would provide information about that before we even hear it from Nvidia. So that's why even if you don't own companies like TSMC or companies that deal in the or the companies that deal with AI manufacturing, you still should pay attention to them as a Nvidia investor.
So essentially, the supply chains that they operate in, which are very complex to make these chips, to make these GPUs, they're saying they don't have the infrastructure, the capacity to actually deal with all the demand via those supply chains. And you're saying that is a tailwind for overall expectation beats, because the streets is always going to expect a little bit less because of that. But once that changes, which could be a couple of years from now, that's when the revenue could decline.
Yeah, that's when I think that's when, I don't know if revenue would decline, maybe it'll just stay flat. But when you start to no longer see those quarter over quarter growth, I think that's when things are going to get very bearish in forms of stock sentiment. I wouldn't say for long-term investors, but at least for bearish thesis coming out from media and everybody else, that's when it's really going to pick up.
Okay, that is fair. That is fair. Let's get a little bit more coverage, guys. We got the call in about 11 minutes, and then we will keep going from there.
Earnings 2026 and trade at 35 times that. That's $175. That's the bull case. if they miss on any of those massive hurdle raises that they have for the next 5 or 6 quarters, the stock could be half of that. That's the challenge investors have to balance, is that there's a lot of things that can go wrong. Right now, though, the demand is fantastic.
Let me play Jensen's advocate here. The likelihood of them missing seems pretty low when you look at what looks like stability of hyperscaler demand, and the overall software demand pouring in. Microsoft at Ignite is just making the argument that people do want its AI offerings. They're continuing to spend on this stuff. So 5 or 6 quarters from now, it might be too late to get up off a hold rating. When do you do it?
Well, so consensus estimates are that NVIDIA is going to grow 50% next year. That means all those hyperscalers need to increase their already very high levels of CapEx by 50% or more. And they've been talking about, Sundar Pichai talked about overinvestment. Satya Nadella, to you yesterday, talked about catching up on investment. Those are not terms you use when you intend to continue to invest like that forever. Those are terms you use when there's a point where you're going to push the brakes. And if that happens next year, and NVIDIA has to guide to down results at any point next year, that's something investors need to be aware of.
But Gil, we're looking at data center revenue that's up 112% year on year this quarter. It's another record. And right there in the release, you have Jensen Huang talking about, basically the stack, about what this is going to mean for compute. We know inferencing is a big part of the story here. Software, partnerships. It's more than just the picks and shovels themselves in terms of the long-term trajectory for NVIDIA. So how much does that need to factor in?
Well, so I'm glad you brought up the picks and shovels analogy, because NVIDIA's...
By the way, this guy is one of the more bearish analysts on the street, guys, from D.A. Davidson, so that's why they're getting his perspective here.
Selling picks and shovels. Microsoft, Amazon, Google are renting them out, but people actually need to find gold. They are not finding nearly enough gold to justify the levels of investment the hyperscalers are currently making. By our calculation, by the end of this year, Microsoft will have invested $80 billion in AI. Now, they'll have a $10 billion AI business from that, but it's still probably a money-losing business. And if Microsoft continues to increase spend, especially if it increases spend by another 50% next year, it's going to be that much harder to get a return on investment unless their customers start finding a whole lot more gold.
So if you have a hold on NVIDIA, and who's finding?
Okay, real quick, we'll get back to him. But Jose, do you agree with that they're not finding the gold?
No, I mean, I think if you're not following the AI space, you might think this is a stalemate. But you've seen all these AI startups, and this is assuming, I guess, AI stays where it's at right now. And I don't think a year from now, we're going to have AI where it's at right now. It's going to grow. And I think that's the missing, and that's a moving variable in this whole equation, right? It's a variable that every day changes depending on how AI is evolving. And that's the most important. And I think right now it's still evolving. So I think this guy is just a little bit salty. He still has a hold on the company.
Well, yeah, he's had a hold for a while. I agree. FSD, that's some gold. Robotics, that's some gold. Figure AI, big robotic startup. They just put out a video. If you guys Google them on Twitter, Figure AI, you'll see the crazy video about robots doing stuff that are powered by GPUs. Palantir, if you look at any of their customer case studies that are what they're able to do because of AI-based workflows, I think there's a lot of gold. I think there's a lot more digging for gold. And it seems like that's a weaker reason to get bearish on NVIDIA.
I mean, imagine when the first AI discovers the best pill to cure cancer for X type of cancer. The stock market would go crazy hearing something like that, right? So it's like, if AI can solve this problem, what can't AI solve?
Correct. I agree, 1,000%.
And gold is sort of up for grabs right now. Where do you invest? Especially when we talk about all of this spending that's happening from the hyperscalers and others, and then the halo effect of NVIDIA through that process when you think about supply chain and this demand versus supply picture.
Well, there is some gold being found. I don't want to say there isn't any. And again, you mentioned Snowflake earlier. They're finding some gold. That's encouraging. We want to see more of that. But the company that's really finding the most gold is Meta. Meta is buying these massive data centers with NVIDIA GPUs, and they're turning it into a way to sell more ads, to sell ads for more money. And they're growing their core business faster based on this. They're the ones that are finding gold, and that makes them the best investment of the mega caps in the growth of AI.
Wild card here, another OpenAI moment, right? Either from OpenAI or somebody else that juices investors' ideas about what valuation should be.
That's exactly right. If OpenAI comes in the next few months with a model that's exponentially better than the last model and shows that compute is still scaling, that these models are still scaling with compute, that's a game changer. It'll be a game changer for everybody, and we hope that happens. If it doesn't, and there's some signs that you've been talking about that it might not, there's going to be a letdown. And all that capacity that Sam Altman is asking for from Microsoft and others, they may not give it to him, because if he doesn't show results towards superintelligence, towards AGI, towards this omnipotent tool, he may not get more capacity. That's when you may see some hyperscalers putting the brakes on.
Okay. I have some thoughts. So do you think that the fate of everything rests on OpenAI putting out a good model? And do you think they're not going to put out a better model?
I mean, they're going to continue to put out better models. And I'm seeing, we're hearing everybody else doing the same thing. I mean, like we saw, XAI just did a valuation to raise more money. Do you think they would need more money if they didn't think there was a better model out there? And then this guy seems to be so bullish on Meta, but Meta is also out there trying to get AGI. Like, that's one of their bullish theses. So I don't know. Sometimes it seems like people just get too. Obviously, AI seems weird. It seems, but I think at the end of the day, if you're investing in companies like this, you need to have some technological imagination of where the world can transform. Obviously, I'm not saying we're going to have robots and flying cars within the next year or two, but thanks to things like AI, thanks to semiconductors evolving, thanks to the innovation of companies like Nvidia, it is possible. So sometimes, again, these analysts just kind of look at that short-term mindset, and I think this is what us retail investors have a nice stronghold that we can imagine what these companies can do.
Yeah, I agree. I think you need to have some imagination. I also think it's very weird to be bullish Meta, but not be bullish what's creating all the advertising spend for them, or all the advertising efficiencies, which are those GPUs. Number two, what I think is also very weird, we got the call in 3 minutes, guys, is that his argument about OpenAI not coming up with a better model seems to be kind of like disconfirmed, because Sam Altman himself said we're probably going to have AGI in the next 1,000 days. Elon Musk the other day said we're going to have AGI by 2026. We know Elon Musk with timelines, but maybe that is 2026. We're going to start to see the beginnings of it. And ultimately, we know that the end goal of all of this is artificial super general intelligence. And if that is the end goal, then NVIDIA is a pivotal role. Now, either you believe that happens or you believe it doesn't. But if you believe it happens, then I don't know how you're bearish NVIDIA and bullish because Meta has more ads. It's hard. It's hard to justify that.
Agree.
Yeah, and he's one of the only guys on the street that's bearish. So when you take the contrarian opinion, that's fine. But in order to be contrarian, you also have to have some logic to back it up. And I agree with you, Jose. It's not like we're getting flying cars or robots tomorrow. And I'm open. I want to hear bear cases, but if the bear case is not valuation, the bear case is, AI might not be a thing, then you're just on a totally different world.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and I do think there are bearish cases for NVIDIA. For me, one of the biggest bearish case for NVIDIA is it's evolving at such a rapid pace, a 1-year cadence on GPUs. That type of technology and pressure on engineers is pretty intense. It's not only just dependent on NVIDIA, right? They're dependent on things like HBM from Micron, from SK Hynix. They're dependent on TSMC for advancements in manufacturing capabilities. So there's just this overall pressure in innovative speed, and that can sometimes, if you're going too fast into something, you might make a mistake somewhere, which can create some form of speed bump. So to me, I think that's the biggest bearish case, is the dependent of innovation in technology so quickly.
I would agree. I would 1000% agree. NVIDIA right here, kind of recovering, 144. Now it's down 0.5%. Snowflake up 19%. Palo Alto Networks down about 5%. Palantir down about 1.2%. NVIDIA down about 0.5% here. You got that green candle coming up. All right, let's get into the call. We should be starting in like 30 seconds, guys. We will have Jensen. Before questions, it'll probably take like 30 to 35 minutes before we get to questions. And then we'll see what Jensen has to say. Should be starting in just about 20 to 30 seconds. NVIDIA 145 briefly up. We hit 145 just for a brief second. It'll also be interesting to see if this thing can move on the call and if he says anything that gets the people excited around any part of their business, and then they end up buying the stock on what he says.
Yeah, I wonder if Jensen's going to sound tired. I feel like last earnings call, he was a little bit tired at the beginning. Oh,
My name
there
is
we go.
Jalen, and I'll be your conference operator today. At this time,
All right, here we go. The call starts now.
all lines have been placed on mute to prevent any background noise. After the speaker's remarks, there will be a question and answer session. If you would like to ask a question during this time, simply press star followed by the number 1 on your telephone keypad. If you would like to withdraw your question, press the star 1 again. Thank you. Stuart Stecker, you may begin your conference.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to NVIDIA's conference call for the third quarter of fiscal 2025. With me today from NVIDIA are Jensen Huang, President and Chief Executive Officer, and Colette Kress, Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer. I'd like to remind you that our call is being webcast live on NVIDIA's Investor Relations website. The webcast will be available for replay until the conference call to discuss our financial results for the fourth quarter of fiscal 2025. The content of today's call is NVIDIA's property. It can't be reproduced or transcribed without our prior written consent. During this call, we may make forward-looking statements based on current expectations. These are subject to a number of significant risks and uncertainties, and our actual results may differ materially. For a discussion of factors that could affect our future financial results and business, please refer to the disclosure in today's earnings release, our most recent Forms 10-K and 10-Q, and the reports that we may file on Form 8-K with the Securities and Exchange Commission. All our statements are made as of today, November 20, 2024, based on information currently available to us. Except as required by law, we assume no obligation to update any such statements. During this call, we will discuss non-GAAP financial measures. You can find a reconciliation of these non-GAAP financial measures to GAAP financial measures in our CFO commentary, which is posted on our website. With that, let me turn the call over to Colette.
Thank you, Stuart. Q3 was another record quarter. We continue to deliver incredible growth. Revenue of $35.1 billion was up 17% sequentially and up 94% year on year, and well above our outlook of $32.5 billion. All market platforms posted strong sequential and year-over-year growth, fueled by the adoption of NVIDIA accelerated computing and AI. Starting with data center, another record was achieved in data center. Revenue of $30.8 billion, up 17% sequential and up 112% year on year. NVIDIA Hopper demand is exceptional, and sequentially, NVIDIA H200 sales increased significantly to double-digit billions, the fastest product ramp in our company's history. The H200 delivers up to 2x faster inference performance and up to 50% improved TCO. Cloud service providers were approximately half of our data center sales, with revenue increasing more than 2x year on year. CSPs deployed NVIDIA H200 infrastructure and high-speed networking with installations scaling to tens of thousands of GPUs to grow their business and serve rapidly rising demand for AI training and inference workloads. NVIDIA H200-powered cloud instances are now available from AWS, CoreWeave, and Microsoft Azure, with Google Cloud and OCI coming soon. Alongside significant growth from our large CSPs, NVIDIA GPU regional cloud revenue jumped 2x year on year as North America, EMEA, and Asia-Pacific regions ramped NVIDIA cloud instances and sovereign cloud buildouts. Consumer internet revenue more than doubled year on year as companies scaled their NVIDIA Hopper infrastructure to support next-generation AI models, training, multimodal and agentic AI, deep learning recommender engines, and generative AI inference and content creation workloads. NVIDIA's Ampere and Hopper infrastructures are fueling inference revenue growth for customers. NVIDIA is the largest inference platform in the world. Our large installed base and rich software ecosystem encourage developers to optimize for NVIDIA and deliver continued performance and TCO improvements. Rapid advancements in NVIDIA software algorithms boosted Hopper inference throughput by an incredible 5x in 1 year and cut time to first token by 5x. Our upcoming release of NVIDIA NIM will boost Hopper inference performance by an additional 2.4x. Continuous performance optimizations are a hallmark of NVIDIA and drive increasingly economic returns for the entire NVIDIA installed base. Blackwell is in full production after a successfully executed mass change. We shipped 13,000 GPU samples to customers in the third quarter, including one of the first Blackwell DGX engineering samples to OpenAI. Blackwell is a full stack, full infrastructure, AI data center scale system with customizable configurations needed to address a diverse and growing AI market. From x86 to ARM, training to inferencing GPUs, InfiniBand to Ethernet switches, and NVLink, and from liquid-cooled to air-cooled. Every customer is racing to be the first to market. Blackwell is now in the hands of all of our major partners, and they are working to bring up their data centers. We are integrating Blackwell systems into the diverse data center configurations of our customers. Blackwell demand is staggering, and we are racing to scale supply to meet the incredible demand customers are placing on us. Customers are gearing up to deploy Blackwell at scale. Oracle announced the world's first Zettascale AI cloud computing clusters that can scale to over 131,000 Blackwell GPUs to help enterprises train and deploy some of the most demanding next-generation AI models. Yesterday, Microsoft announced they will be the first CSP to offer, in private preview, Blackwell-based cloud instances powered by NVIDIA GB200 and Quantum InfiniBand. Last week, Blackwell made its debut on the most recent round of MLPerf training results, sweeping the per GPU benchmarks and delivering a 2.2x leap in performance over Hopper. The results also demonstrate our relentless pursuit to drive down the cost of compute. Just 64 Blackwell GPUs are required to run the GPT-3 benchmark compared to 256 H100s, for a 4x reduction in cost. NVIDIA Blackwell architecture with NVLink switch enables up to 30x faster inference performance and a new level of inference scaling throughput and response time that is excellent for running new reasoning inference applications like OpenAI's O1 model. With every new platform shift, a wave of startups is created. Hundreds of AI native companies are already delivering AI services with great success. Through Google, Meta, Microsoft, and OpenAI are the headliners. Anthropic, Perplexity, Mistral, Adobe Firefly, Runway, Midjourney, Lightricks, Harvey, Codium, Cursor, and Abridge are seeing great success, while thousands of AI native startups are building new services. The next wave of AI are enterprise AI and industrial AI. Enterprise AI is in full throttle. NVIDIA AI Enterprise, which includes NVIDIA NeMo and NIM microservices, is an operating platform of agentic AI. Industry leaders are using NVIDIA AI to build copilots and agents. Working with NVIDIA, Cadence, Cloudera, Cohesity, NetApp, Nutanix, Salesforce, SAP, and ServiceNow are racing to accelerate development of these applications with the potential for billions of agents to be deployed in the coming years. Consulting leaders like Accenture and Deloitte are taking NVIDIA AI to the world's enterprises. Accenture launched a new business group with 30,000 professionals trained on NVIDIA AI technology to help facilitate this global build-out. Additionally, Accenture, with over 770,000 employees, is leveraging NVIDIA-powered agentic AI applications internally, including one case that cuts manual steps in marketing campaigns by 25 to 35%. Nearly 1,000 companies are using NVIDIA NIM, and the speed of its uptake is evident in NVIDIA AI Enterprise monetization. We expect NVIDIA AI Enterprise full-year revenue to increase over 2x from last year, and our pipeline continues to build. Overall, our software, service, and support revenue is annualizing at $1.5 billion, and we expect to exit this year annualizing at over $2 billion. Industrial AI and robotics are accelerating. This is triggered by breakthroughs in physical AI, foundation models that understand the physical world. Like NVIDIA NeMo for enterprise AI agents, we built NVIDIA Omniverse for developers to build, train, and operate industrial AI and robotics. Some of the largest industrial manufacturers in the world are adopting NVIDIA Omniverse to accelerate their businesses, automate their workflows, and to achieve new levels of operating efficiency. Foxconn, the world's largest electronics manufacturer, is using digital twins and industrial AI built on NVIDIA Omniverse to speed the bring-up of its Blackwell factories and drive new levels of efficiency. In its Mexico facility alone, Foxconn expects to reduce a reduction of over 30% in annual kilowatt-hour usage. From a geographic perspective, our data center revenue in China grew sequentially due to shipments of export-compliant Hopper products to industries. As a percentage of total data center revenue, it remains well below levels prior to the onset of export controls. We expect the market in China to remain very competitive going forward. We will continue to comply with export controls while serving our customers. Our sovereign AI initiatives continue to gather momentum as countries embrace NVIDIA accelerated computing for a new industrial revolution powered by AI. India's leading CSPs, include Tata Communications and Zoda Data Services, are building AI factories for tens of thousands of NVIDIA GPUs. By year-end, they will have boosted NVIDIA GPU deployments in the country by nearly 10x. Infosys, TSC, Wipro are adopting NVIDIA AI Enterprise and upskilling nearly 500,000 developers and consultants to help clients build and run AI agents on our platform. In Japan, SoftBank is building the nation's most powerful AI supercomputer with NVIDIA DGX Blackwell and Quantum InfiniBand. SoftBank is also partnering with NVIDIA to transform the telecommunications network into a distributed AI network with NVIDIA AI Aerial, an ARAN platform that can process both 5G RAN on AI on CUDA. We are launching the same in the US with T-Mobile. Leaders across Japan, including Fujitsu, NEC, and NTT, are adopting NVIDIA AI Enterprise, and major consulting companies, including EY, Strategy and Consulting, will help bring NVIDIA AI technology to Japan's industries. Networking revenue increased 20% year-on-year. Areas of sequential revenue growth include InfiniBand and Ethernet switches, SmartNICs, and Bluefield DPUs. Though networking revenue was sequentially down, networking demand is strong and growing, and we anticipate sequential growth in Q4. CSPs and supercomputing centers are using and adopting the NVIDIA InfiniBand platform to power new H200 clusters. NVIDIA Spectrum-X Ethernet for AI revenue increased over 3x year-on-year, and our pipeline continues to build with multiple CSPs and consumer internet companies planning large cluster deployments. Traditional Ethernet was not designed for AI. NVIDIA Spectrum X uniquely leverages technology previously exclusive to InfiniBand to enable customers to achieve massive scale of their GPU compute. Utilizing Spectrum X, xAI's Colossus 100,000 Hopper supercomputer experienced zero application latency degradation and maintained 95% data throughput versus 60% for traditional Ethernet. Now moving to gaming and AI PCs. Gaming revenue of $3.3 billion increased 14% sequentially and 15% year-on-year. Q3 was a great quarter for gaming, with notebook, console, and desktop revenue all growing sequentially and year-on-year. RTX end demand was fueled by strong back-to-school sales as consumers continued to choose GeForce RTX GPUs and devices to power gaming, creative, and AI applications. Channel inventory remains healthy, and we are gearing up for the holiday season. We began shipping new GeForce RTX AI PCs with up to 321 AI TOPS from ASUS and MSI, with Microsoft's Copilot Plus capabilities anticipated in Q4. These machines harness the power of RTX ray tracing and AI technologies to supercharge gaming, photo and video editing, image generation, and coding. This past quarter, we celebrated the 25th anniversary of the GeForce 256, the world's first GPU. The transforming computing graphics to igniting the AI revolution, NVIDIA's GPUs have been the driving force behind some of the most consequential technologies of our time. Moving to ProViz. Revenue of $486 million was up 7% sequentially and 17% year-on-year. NVIDIA RTX workstations continue to be the preferred choice to power professional graphics, design, and engineering-related workloads. Additionally, AI is emerging as a powerful demand driver, including autonomous vehicle simulation, generative AI model prototyping for productivity-related use cases, and generative AI content creation in media and entertainment. Moving to automotive. Revenue was a record $449 million, up 30% sequentially and up 72% year-on-year. Strong growth was driven by self-driving ramps of NVIDIA Orin and robust end market demand for NEVs. Volvo Cars is rolling out its fully electric SUV built on NVIDIA Orin and Drive OS. Okay, moving to the rest of the P&L. GAAP gross margin was 74.6% and non-GAAP gross margin was 75%, down sequentially, primarily driven by a mix shift of the H100 systems to more complex and higher cost systems within data center. Sequentially, GAAP operating expenses and non-GAAP operating expenses were up 9% due to higher compute, infrastructure, and engineering development costs for new product introductions. In Q3, we returned $11.2 billion to shareholders in the form of share repurchases and cash dividends. Well, let me turn to the outlook for the fourth quarter. Total revenue is expected to be $37.5 billion, plus or minus 2%, which incorporates continued demand for Hopper architecture and the initial ramp of our Blackwell products. While demand is greatly exceed supply, we are on track to exceed our previous Blackwell revenue estimate of several $billion as our visibility into supply continues to increase.
That's pretty good.
On gaming, although sell-through is strong in Q3, we expect fourth quarter revenue to decline sequentially due to supply constraints. GAAP and non-GAAP gross margins are expected to be 73% and 73.5% respectively, plus or minus 50 basis points. Blackwell is a customizable AI infrastructure with 7 different types of NVIDIA-built chips, multiple networking options, and for air and liquid-cooled data centers. Our current focus is on ramping to strong demand, increasing system availability, and providing the optimal mix of configurations to our customer. As Blackwell ramps, we expect gross margins to moderate to the low 70s. When fully ramped, we expect Blackwell margins to be in the mid-70s. GAAP and non-GAAP operating expenses are expected to be approximately $4.8 billion and $3.4 billion, respectively. We are a data center scale AI infrastructure company. Our investments include building data centers for development of our hardware and software stacks and to support new introductions. GAAP and non-GAAP other income and expenses are expected to be an income of approximately $400 million, excluding gains and losses from non-affiliated investments. GAAP and non-GAAP tax rates are expected to be 16.5%, plus or minus 1%, excluding any discrete items. Further financial details are included in the CFO commentary and other information available on our IR websites. In closing, let me highlight upcoming events for the financial community. We will be attending the UBS Global Technology and AI Conference on December 3rd in Scottsdale. Please join us at CES in Las Vegas, where Jensen will deliver a keynote on January 6th. And we will host a Q&A session for financial analysts the next day on January 7th. Our earnings call to discuss results for the fourth quarter of fiscal 2025 is scheduled for February 26, 2025. We will now open the call for questions. Operator, can you poll for questions, please?
Here we go.
At this time, I would like to remind everyone, in order to ask a question, press star, then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. We'll pause for just a moment to compile the Q&A roster.
All right, guys, now it's time.
As a reminder, please limit yourself to one question. Your first question comes from the line of CJ Muse of Cantor Fitzgerald. Your line is open.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you for taking the question. I guess just a question for you on the debate around whether scaling for large language models have stalled. Obviously, we're very early here, but we'd love to hear your thoughts on this front. How are you helping your customers as they work through these issues? And then obviously part of the context here is we're discussing clusters that have yet to benefit from Blackwell. So is this driving even greater demand for Blackwell? Thank you.
Foundation model pre-training scaling is intact, and it's continuing. As you know, this is an empirical law, not a fundamental physical law. But the evidence is that it continues to scale. What we're learning, however, is that it's not enough. That we've now discovered 2 other ways to scale. One is post-training scaling. Of course, the first generation of post-training was reinforcement learning human feedback, but now we have reinforcement learning AI feedback and all forms of synthetic data generated data that assists in post-training scaling. And one of the biggest events and one of the most exciting developments is Strawberry, ChatGPT 01, OpenAI's 01, which does inference time scaling, or what's called test time scaling. The longer it thinks, the better and higher quality answer it produces. And it considers approaches like chain of thought and multi-path planning and all kinds of techniques necessary to reflect and so on and so forth. And it's intuitively, it's a little bit like us doing thinking in our head before we answer a question. And so we now have 3 ways of scaling, and we're seeing all 3 ways of scaling. And as a result of that, the demand for our infrastructures is really great. You see now that at the tail end of the last generation of foundation models, we're at about 100,000 hoppers. The next generation starts at 100,000 Blackwells. And so that kind of gives you a sense of where the industry is moving with respect to pre-training, scaling, post-training scaling, and then now, very importantly, inference time scaling. And so the demand is really great for all of those reasons. But remember, simultaneously, we're seeing inference really starting to scale up for our company. We are the largest inference platform in the world today because our install base is so large, and everything that was trained on Amperes and Hoppers inference incredibly on Amperes and Hoppers. And as we move to Blackwells for training foundation models, it leaves behind it, a large install base of extraordinary infrastructure for inference. And so we're seeing inference demand go up. We're seeing inference time scaling go up. We see the number of AI native companies continue to grow. And of course, we're starting to see enterprise adoption of agentic AI really is the latest rage. And so we're seeing a lot of demand coming from a lot of different places.
Great answer by Jensen.
Your next question comes from the line of Toshiya Hari of Goldman Sachs. Your line is open.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for taking the question. Jensen, you executed the mask change earlier this year. There were some reports over the weekend about some heating issues. On the back of this, we've had investors ask about your ability to execute to the roadmap you presented at GTC this year, with Ultra coming out next year and the transition to Rubin in 26. Can you sort of speak to that? And some investors are questioning that. So if you can sort of speak to your ability to execute on time, that would be super helpful. And then a quick part B on supply constraints. Is it a multitude of componentry that's causing this, or is it specifically, CoWoS, HBM? Is the supply constraints? Are the supply constraints getting better? Are they worsening? Any sort of color on that would be super helpful as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks. So let's see. Back to the first question. Blackwell production is in full steam. In fact, as Colette mentioned earlier, we will deliver this quarter more Blackwells than we had previously estimated. And so the supply chain team is doing an incredible job working with our supply partners to increase Blackwell, and we're going to continue to work hard to increase Blackwell through next year. It is the case that demand exceeds our supply, and that's expected as we're in the beginnings of this generative AI revolution, as we all know. And we're at the beginning of a new generation of foundation models that are able to do reasoning and able to do long thinking, and of course one of the really exciting areas is physical AI that now understands the structure of the physical world. And so Blackwell demand is very strong. Our execution is going well, and there's obviously a lot of engineering that we're doing across the world. You see now systems that are being stood up by Dell and CoreWeave. I think you saw systems from Oracle stood up. You have systems from Microsoft, and they're about to preview their Grace Blackwell systems. You have systems that are at Google. And so all of these CSPs are racing to be first. The engineering that we do with them is, as you know, rather complicated. And the reason for that is because although we build full stack and full infrastructure, we disaggregate all of this AI supercomputer, and we integrate it into all of the custom data centers in architectures around the world. That integration process is something we've done several generations now. We're very good at it, but there's still a lot of engineering that happens at this point. But as you see from all of the systems that are being stood up, Blackwell is in great shape. And as we mentioned earlier, the supply and what we're planning to ship this quarter is greater than our previous estimates. With respect to the supply chain, there's 7 different chips, 7 custom chips that we built in order for us to deliver the Blackwell systems. The Blackwell systems go in air-cooled or liquid-cooled, NVLink 8 or NVLink 72, or NVLink 8, NVLink 36, NVLink 72. We have x86 or Grace, and the integration of all of those systems into the world's data centers is nothing short of a miracle. And so the component supply chain necessary to ramp at the scale, you have to go back and take a look at how much Blackwell was shipped last quarter, which was 0, and in terms of how much Blackwell total systems will ship this quarter, which is measured in billions, the ramp is incredible. And so almost every company in the world seems to be involved in our supply chain. And we've got great partners, everybody from, of course, TSMC and Amphenol, the connector company, incredible company, Vertiv and SK Hynix and Micron, Spill, Amcor, and KYEC, and there's Foxconn and the factories that they've built, and Quanta and WeWin, and Dell and HP and Supermicro, Lenovo, and the number of companies is just really quite incredible. Quanta, and I'm sure I've missed partners that are involved in the ramping of Blackwell, which I really appreciate. And so, anyways, I think we're in great shape with respect to the Blackwell ramp at this point. And then lastly, your question about our execution of our roadmap. We're on an annual roadmap, and we're expecting to continue to execute on our annual roadmap. And by doing so, we increase the performance, of course, of our platform. But it's also really important to realize that when we're able to increase performance and do so at X factors at a time, we're reducing the cost of training, we're reducing the cost of inferencing, we're reducing the cost of AI so that it could be much more accessible. But the other factor that's very important to note is that when there's a data center of some fixed size, and a data center always is of some fixed size, it could be, of course, tens of megawatts in the past, and now it's, most data centers are now 100 megawatts to several hundred megawatts, and we're planning on gigawatt data centers. It doesn't really matter how large the data centers are. The power is limited. And when you're in the power limited data center, the highest performance per watt translates directly into the highest revenues for our partners. And so on the one hand, our annual roadmap reduces cost. But on the other hand, because our perf per watt is so good compared to anything out there, we generate for our customers the greatest possible revenues. And so that annual rhythm is really important to us, and we have every intentions of continuing to do that. And everything's on track as far as I know.
Your next question comes from the line of Timothy Arcuri of UBS. Your line is open.
Thanks a lot. I'm wondering if you can talk about the trajectory of how Blackwell is going to ramp this year. I know, Jensen, you did just talk about Blackwell being better than I think you had said several billions of dollars in January. Sounds like you're going to do more than that. But I think in recent months also you said that Blackwell crosses over Hopper in the April quarter. So I guess I had 2 questions. First of all, is that still the right way to think about it, that Blackwell will cross over Hopper in April? And then, Colette, you kind of talked about Blackwell bringing down gross margin to the low, to the low 70s as it ramps. So I guess if April is the crossover, is that the worst of the pressure on gross margin? So you're going to be kind of in the low 70s as soon as April. I'm just wondering if you can sort of shape that for us. Thanks.
Why don't you start?
Sure. Let me first start with your question, Tim. Thank you. Regarding our gross margins, And we discussed that our gross margins, as we are ramping Blackwell in the very beginning, and the many different configurations, the many different chips that we are bringing to market, we are going to focus on making sure we have the best experience for our customers as they stand that up. We will start growing into our gross margins, but we do believe those will be in the low 70s in that first part of the ramp. So you're correct. As you look at the quarters following after that, we will start increasing our gross margins, and we hope to get to the mid 70s quite quickly as part of that ramp.
Hopper demand will continue through next year, surely the first several quarters of the next year. And meanwhile, we'll ship more Blackwells next quarter than this, and we'll ship more Blackwells the quarter after that than our first quarter. And so that kind of puts it in perspective. We are really at the beginnings of two fundamental shifts in computing that is really quite significant. The first is moving from coding that runs on CPUs to machine learning that creates neural networks that runs on GPUs. And that fundamental shift from coding to machine learning is widespread at this point. There are no companies who are not going to do machine learning. And so machine learning is also what enables generative AI. And so on the one hand, the first thing that's happening is, $1 trillion worth of computing systems and data centers around the world is now being modernized for machine learning. On the other hand, secondarily, I guess, is that on top of these systems we're going to be creating a new type of capability called AI. And when we say generative AI, we're essentially saying that these data centers are really AI factories. They're generating something. Just like we generate electricity, we're now going to be generating AI. And if the number of customers is large, just as the number of consumers of electricity is large, these generators are going to be running 24/7. And today, many AI services are running 24/7, just like an AI factory. And so we're going to see this new type of system come online, and I call it an AI factory because that's really as close to what it is. It's unlike a data center of the past. And so these two fundamental trends are really just beginning. And so we expect this to happen, this growth, this modernization, and the creation of a new industry, to go on for several years.
Your next question comes from the line of Vivek Arya of Bank of America Securities. Your line is open.
Thanks for taking my question. Colette, just to clarify, do you think it's a fair assumption to think NVIDIA could recover to kind of mid-70s gross margin in the back half of calendar 25? Just wanted to clarify that. And then, Jensen, my main question, historically, when we have seen hardware deployment cycles, they have inevitably included some digestion along the way. When do you think we get to that phase, or is it just too premature to discuss that because you're just at the start of Blackwell? So how many quarters of shipments do you think is required to kind of satisfy this first wave? Can you continue to grow this into calendar 26? Just how should we be prepared to see what we have seen historically, right? The periods of digestion along the way of a long-term kind of secular hardware deployment.
Okay. Vivek, thank you for the question. Let me clarify your question regarding gross margins. Could we reach the mid-70s in the second half of next year? And yes, I think it is reasonable assumption or a goal for us to do, but we'll just have to see how that mix of ramp goes. But yes, it is definitely possible.
The way to think through that, Vivek, is I believe that there will be no digestion until we modernize $1 trillion worth of data centers. If you just look at the world's data centers, the vast majority of it is built for a time when we wrote applications by hand and we ran them on CPUs. It's just not a sensible thing to do anymore. If every company's CapEx, if they're ready to build a data center tomorrow, they ought to build it for a future of machine learning and generative AI, because they have plenty of old data centers. And so what's going to happen over the course of next, X number of years, and let's assume that over the course of 4 years, the world's data centers could be modernized as we grow into IT. As you know, IT continues to grow about 20-30% a year, let's say. And so, let's say by 2030, the world's data centers for computing is call it a couple $1 trillion. We have to grow into that. We have to modernize the data center from coding to machine learning. That's number one. The second part of it is generative AI, and we're now producing a new type of capability that the world's never known, a new market segment that the world's never had. If you look at OpenAI, it didn't replace anything. It's something that's completely brand new. It's in a lot of ways, as when the iPhone came, it was completely brand new. It wasn't really replacing anything, and so we're going to see more and more companies like that, they're going to create and generate out of their services essentially intelligence. Some of it would be digital artist intelligence, like Runway. Some of it would be basic intelligence, like OpenAI. Some of it would be legal intelligence, like Harvey. Digital marketing intelligence, like Writers. So on and so forth. And the number of these companies, what are they called? AI native companies are just in hundreds. And almost every platform shift. There were internet companies, as you recall. There were cloud first companies. There were mobile first companies. Now they're AI natives. And so these companies are being created because people see that there's a platform shift and there's a brand new opportunity to do something completely new. And so my sense is that we're going to continue to build out, to modernize IT, modernize computing, number one, and then number two, create these AI factories that are going to be for a new industry for the production of artificial intelligence.
Your next question comes from the line of Stacy Rasgon of Bernstein Research. Your line is open.
Hi, guys. Thanks for taking my questions. Colette, I had a clarification and a question for you. The clarification, just when you say low 70s gross margins, is 73.5 count as low 70s, or do you have something else in mind? And for my question, you're guiding total revenues, and so I mean total data center revenues in the next quarter must be up, quote unquote, several $1 billion. But it sounds like Blackwell now should be up more than that. But you also said Hopper was still strong. So is Hopper down sequentially next quarter? And if it is, why? Is it because of the supply constraints? China's been pretty strong. Is China kind of rolling off a bit into Q4? So any color you can give us on sort of the Blackwell ramp and the Blackwell versus Hopper behavior into Q4 would be really helpful. Thank you.
So first, starting on your first question there, Stacy, regarding our gross margin and define low. Low, of course, is below the mids, and let's say we might be at 71, maybe about 72, 72 and a half. We're going to be in that range. We could be higher than that as well. We're just going to have to see how it comes through. We do want to make sure that we are ramping and continuing that improvement, the improvement in terms of our yields, the improvement in terms of the product as we go through the rest of the year. So we'll get up to the mid 70s by that point. The second statement was a question regarding our Hopper and what is our Hopper doing. We have seen substantial growth for H200, not only in terms of orders, but the quickness in terms of those that are standing that up. It is an amazing product, and it's the fastest growing and ramping that we've seen. We will continue to be selling Hopper in this quarter, in Q4 for sure. That is across the board in terms of all of our different configurations, and our configurations include what we may do in terms of China. But keep that in mind that folks are also at the same time looking to build out their Blackwell. So we've got a little bit of both happening in Q4. But yes, is it possible for Hopper to grow between Q3 and Q4? It's possible, but we'll just have to see.
Your next question comes from the line of Joseph Moore of Morgan Stanley. Your line is open.
Great, thank you. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what you're seeing in the inference market. You've talked about Strawberry and some of the ramifications of longer scaling inference projects, but you've also talked about the possibility that as some of these Hopper clusters age, that you could use some of the Hopper latent chips for inference. So, I guess, do you expect inference to outgrow training in the next kind of 12-month time frame, and just generally your thoughts there?
Our hopes and dreams is that someday the world does a ton of inference, and that's when AI has really succeeded. Is when every single company is doing inference inside their companies for the marketing department and forecasting department and supply chain group and their legal department and engineering, of course, and coding, of course, and so we hope that every company is doing inference 24/7, and that there will be a whole bunch of AI native startups, thousands of AI native startups that are generating tokens and generating AI, and every aspect of your computer experience, from using Outlook to PowerPointing, or when you're sitting there with Excel, you're constantly generating tokens. And every time you read a PDF, open a PDF, it generated a whole bunch of tokens. One of my favorite applications is Notebook LM. This Google application that came out. I use the living daylights out of it just because it's fun, And I put every PDF, every archive paper into it just to listen to it, as well as scanning through it. And so I think that's the goal, is to train these models so that people use it. And there's now a whole new era of AI, if you will, a whole new genre of AI called physical AI. Just as large language models understand the human language and the thinking process, if you will. Physical AI understands the physical world, and it understands the meaning of the structure, and understands what's sensible and what's not, and what could happen and what won't. And not only does it understand, but it can predict, roll out a short future. That capability is incredibly valuable for industrial AI and robotics, and so that's fired up so many AI native companies and robotics companies and physical AI companies that you're probably hearing about. And it's really the reason why we built Omniverse. Omniverse is so that we can enable these AIs to be created and learn in Omniverse, and learn from synthetic data generation and reinforcement learning, physics feedback instead of human feedback. It's now physics feedback. To have these capabilities, Omniverse was created so that we can enable physical AI. And so that the goal is to generate tokens. The goal is to inference, and we're starting to see that growth happening. So I'm super excited about that. Now, let me just say one more thing. Inference is super hard, and the reason why inference is super hard is because you need the accuracy to be high. On the one hand, you need the throughput to be high so that the cost could be as low as possible. But you also need the low latency to be low, and computers that are high throughput as well as low latency is incredibly hard to build. And these applications have long context lengths because they want to understand. They want to be able to inference within understanding the context of what they're being asked to do. And so the context length is growing larger and larger. On the other hand, the models are getting larger. They're multimodality. Just the number of dimensions that inference is innovating is incredible. And this innovation rate is what makes NVIDIA's architecture so great, because our ecosystem is fantastic. Everybody knows that if they innovate on top of CUDA and on top of NVIDIA's architecture, they can innovate more quickly, and they know that everything should work. And if something were to happen, it's probably likely their code and not ours. And so that ability to innovate in every single direction at the same time, having a large installed base so that whatever you create could land on an NVIDIA computer and be deployed broadly all around the world in every single data center, all the way out to the edge, into robotic systems. That capability is really quite phenomenal.
All right, we're waiting for
Your
the
next
next question.
question
All right.
comes from the line of Aaron Rakers of Wells Fargo. Your line is open.
Stock's down 1.5%.
Yeah, thanks for taking the question. I wanted to ask you, as we kind of focus on the Blackwell cycle and think about the data center business, when I look at the results this last quarter, Colette, you mentioned that obviously the networking business was down about 15% sequentially, but then your comments were that you were seeing very strong demand. You mentioned also that you had multiple cloud, CSP design wins for these large scale clusters. So I'm curious if you could unpack what's going on in the networking business and where maybe you've seen some constraints and just your confidence in the pace of Spectrum X progressing to that multiple billions of dollars that you previously had talked about. Thank you.
Let's first start with the networking. The growth year over year is tremendous. And our focus since the beginning of our acquisition of Mellanox has really been about building together the work that we do in terms of in the data center. The networking is such a critical part of that. Our ability to sell our networking with many of our systems that we are doing in data center is continuing to grow and do quite well. So this quarter is just a slight dip down, and we're going to be right back up in terms of growing. They're getting ready for Blackwell and more systems that will be using not only our existing networking, but also the networking that is going to be incorporated in a lot of these large systems that we are providing them to.
Your next question comes from the line of Atif Malik of Citi. Your line is open.
Thank you for taking my question. I have two quick ones for Colette. Colette, on the last earnings call, you mentioned that sovereign demand is in low double-digit billions. Can you provide an update on that? And then can you explain the supply constraint situation in gaming? Is that because you're shifting your supply towards data center?
So first, starting in terms of sovereign AI, such an important part of growth, something that has really surfaced with the onset of generative AI and building models in the individual countries around the world. And we see a lot of them, and we talked about a lot of them in the call today, and the work that they are doing. So our sovereign AI and our pipeline going forward is still absolutely intact, as those are working to build these foundational models in their own language, in their own culture, and working in terms of the enterprises within those countries. And I think you'll continue to see this be a growth opportunities that you may see with our regional clouds that are being stood up, and or those that are focusing in terms of AI factories for many parts of the sovereign AI. This is areas where this is growing not only in terms of in Europe, but you're also seeing this in terms of growth in terms of in the Asia Pac as well. Let me flip to your second question that you asked regarding gaming. So our gaming right now from a supply, we're busy trying to make sure that we can ramp all of our different products. And in this case, our gaming supply, given what we saw selling through, was moving quite fast. Now, the challenge that we have is how fast could we get that supply getting ready into the market for this quarter. Not to worry, I think we'll be back on track with more supply as we turn the corner into the new calendar year. We're just going to be tight for this quarter.
Your next question comes from the line of Ben Reitzes of Melius Research. Your line is open.
Yeah, hi. Thanks a lot for the question. I wanted to ask Colette and Jensen, with regard to sequential growth. So Very strong sequential growth this quarter, and you're guiding to about 7%. Do your comments on Blackwell imply that we reaccelerate from there as you get more supply? In the first half, it would seem that there would be some catch up. So I was wondering how prescriptive you could be there. And then Jensen, just overall, with the change in administration that's going to take place here in the U.S. and the China situation, have you gotten any sense or any conversations about tariffs or anything with regard to your China business? Any sense of what may or may not go on? It's probably too early, but wondering if you had any thoughts there. Thanks so much.
We guide one quarter at a time.
We are working right now on the quarter that we're in and building what we need to ship in terms of Blackwell. We have every supplier on the planet working seamlessly with us to do that. And once we get to next quarter, we'll help you understand in terms of that ramp that we'll see to the next quarter going after that.
Whatever the new administration decides, we will of course support the administration, and that's the highest mandate. And then after that, do the best we can, and just as we always do. And so we have to simultaneously, and we will comply with any regulation that comes along fully, and support our customers to the best of our abilities, and compete in the marketplace. We'll do all of these three things simultaneously.
Your final question comes from the line of Pierre Ferragu of New Street Research. Your line is open.
Hey, thanks for taking my question. Jensen, you mentioned in your comments, you have the pre-trainings, the actual language models, and you have reinforcement learning that becomes more and more important in training and in inference as well. And then you have inference itself. And I was wondering if you have a sense, like a high-level typical sense of out of an overall AI ecosystem, like maybe one of your clients or one of the large models that are out there today, how much of the compute goes into each of these buckets? How much for the pre-training, how much for the reinforcement, and how much into inference today? Do you have any sense for how it's splitting and where the growth is the most important as well?
Well, today it's vastly in pre-training of foundation model, because as you know, post-training, the new technologies are just coming online, and whatever you could do in pre-training and post-training, you would try to do so that the inference cost could be as low as possible for everyone. However, there are only so many things that you could do a priori, and so you'll always have to do on-the-spot thinking and in-context thinking and reflection. And so I think that the fact that all three are scaling is actually very sensible based on where we are. And in the area of foundation model, now we have multimodality foundation models, and the amount of petabytes of video that these foundation models are going to be trained on is incredible. And so my expectation is that for the foreseeable future, we're going to be scaling pre-training, post-training, as well as inference time scaling, and which is the reason why I think we're going to need more and more compute. And we're going to have to drive as hard as we can to keep increasing the performance by X factors at a time, so that we can continue to drive down the cost and continue to increase their revenues and get the AI revolution going. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'll turn the call back over to Jensen Huang for closing remarks.
Thank you. The tremendous growth in our business is being fueled by two fundamental trends that are driving global adoption of NVIDIA computing. First, the computing stack is undergoing a reinvention, a platform shift, from coding to machine learning, from executing code on CPUs to processing neural networks on GPUs. The $1 trillion install base of traditional data center infrastructure is being rebuilt for Software 2.0, which applies machine learning to produce AI. Second, the age of AI is in full steam. Generative AI is not just a new software capability, but a new industry with AI factories manufacturing digital intelligence, a new industrial revolution that can create a multi-trillion-dollar AI industry. Demand for Hopper and anticipation for Blackwell, which is now in full production, are incredible for several reasons. There are more foundation model makers now than there were a year ago. The computing scale of pre-training and post-training continues to grow exponentially. There are more AI native startups than ever, and the number of successful inference services is rising. And with the introduction of ChatGPT 01, OpenAI 01, a new scaling law called test time scaling has emerged. All of these consume a great deal of computing. AI is transforming every industry, company, and country. Enterprises are adopting agentic AI to revolutionize workflows. Over time, AI coworkers will assist employees in performing their jobs faster and better. Investments in industrial robotics are surging due to breakthroughs in physical AI, driving new training infrastructure demand as researchers train world foundation models on petabytes of video and omniverse synthetically generated data. The age of robotics is coming. Countries across the world recognize the fundamental AI trends we are seeing and have awakened to the importance of developing their national AI infrastructure. The age of AI is upon us, and it's large and diverse. NVIDIA's expertise, scale, and ability to deliver full stack and full infrastructure let us serve the entire multi-trillion-dollar AI and robotics opportunities ahead. From every hyperscale cloud, enterprise private cloud, to sovereign regional AI clouds, on-prem to industrial edge and robotics. Thanks for joining us today, and catch up next time.
This concludes today's conference call. You may now disconnect.
All right, here we go. That was Nvidia earnings. Stock right now down about 1% after hours. Really couldn't make the recovery. It was like 5 cents from going green and then got sold off. Jose, raw reaction.
Earnings were great as a long-term investor and not anything that would scare me. We had a lot of great news from Nvidia. First, Blackwell this upcoming quarter is going to do better than expected, which is great. Gross margins are expected to return back to mid-70s once Blackwell's in full production, which is what we've kind of expected. Just the initial ramp up was going to hurt gross margins. What else did we hear? We hear the what else did we hear?
I heard a lot of this CFO. Is she was CFO, right? Colette?
Yes, Colette. Yeah.
I don't get why she was talking more than the CEO.
I feel like she always does. Because right now most of the questions are just financial questions at the end of the day. I think Jensen usually just goes at the end and kind of gives his revolutionary thoughts. But most of the time the questions usually end up in the margin expansion or we're going to go from there, and usually Colette answers those.
No, that's fair, but as someone who wants to hear Jensen answer those questions, just because I think the street also wants to hear his perspective, I think that's important. So I think so. What do you think she said that's getting the street kind of feeling weird right now? Was it something on margins, supply constraints? Because this stock's not really moving, and I feel like she didn't give them enough clarity that they wanted.
I don't know. I mean, for me, if I may say, the stock it's down 1-2% after running up a little bit this week. I think everything was intact, I don't have any questions on anything that unanswered. I guess maybe just Street was expecting a little bit more from Blackwell in this upcoming quarter, but we saw strong demand for Hopper. The H200 is also seeing strong demand as well. Another thing that we heard pretty strongly from Jensen was that, hey, look, there was a bearish thesis that maybe training was coming to some form of stalemate, but that doesn't seem to be the case either. He mentioned training was growing, pre-training was growing, post-training was growing, and inference was growing thanks to the new scaling law of things like O1 Strawberry. So I don't know what Colette could have said differently to get the Street more excited.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like, it's one of those idiosyncratic things, because obviously you're correct, right? The CFO can answer these financial questions, and she's supposed to answer these financial questions. The problem was, I think, and I agree with people in the chat, the NVIDIA's priced to perfection. They needed to beat all the estimates. They did beat all the estimates. But then on these very small things around margins, this one, Stacy, who's from Bernstein, he was like, so when you mean low 70s, does that mean 72, 73, or 74? Like, that's such a minute, nitty-gritty question.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because that's how perfectly the stock is priced that you need answers to those questions. I think the Street wanted Jensen to confidently say one thing or another. And there was one question, I forgot exactly what the question was, but Jensen was kind of like, well, we're taking it quarter by quarter. And you could tell he didn't really want to answer it. He was just like, dude, like, no, ask me this in 90 days. And I think that also, that sort of lack of like yes or no, because probably they don't fully know, that might be getting investors a little bit shaky right now. Do you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, okay, I would agree with that. I think maybe investors try to poke a little bit more, or analysts try to poke a little bit more information than they want to hear, right? I mean, at the end of the day, these are quarterly reports. They tell us that, hey, look, supply is still going to be pretty strong. But I think analysts are expecting NVIDIA to give you numbers for 2 quarters out. And physically, I mean, I think they can't, right?
Did you get his answer to tariffs? What do you guys think in the chat? Do you think he answered that question about tariffs properly or not? And Jose, what do you think?
I think he answered it to the best of our knowledge right now. He says obviously he works with the current administration right now with the export restrictions. So he's going to say if tariffs do come in, he's going to work with them as well. At the end of the day, I think we see the margins of NVIDIA being so high that even a few percentage margins won't really hurt the company too much.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, look, he has no idea what the Trump tariffs are going to be like, and if Trump is even using it as like a bargaining thing, if Trump's actually going to implement it. So there's a lot of different things, I think, right here in the context of what we're looking at for the future of regulations that he probably can't give a ton of responses to.
Yeah, and who knows how these tariffs laws will come. Will it be like, hey, if you're a company that's designing the chip here in the United States and you're already spending a lot of money in research and development, would you also get maybe some form of, I want to say not incentive, but maybe like a cut down on these tariffs or stuff like that. So we don't know exactly what's going to happen. We just know NVIDIA is working with the United States company. It's a US-based company, and they do a lot of investments here in the States.
Yeah, I agree. Also, one good point right here in the chat. He was not political. He kind of he just said, it was one of those things where he didn't piss off anybody by taking sides right here. He just said, we'll kind of deal with it when we deal with it. NVIDIA CEO said that the company will ship more Blackwell AI data center GPUs than it had previously expecting during Q4. Do you think that was a positive remark around Blackwell?
Definitely. I mean, it just continues to show the bullish trend of Blackwell, and we still have strong bullish trend for Hopper 200 as well. I want to say one thing I did pick up when there was a question about the overheating issue. It wasn't as simple as yes or no. The way and I'm going to have to reread the transcript, the way to the overheating issue, it was, hey, look, we give references to multiple server makers. Some server makers might do things with it outside of our reference point, and the way I saw it is like there isn't the possibility that overheating is happening, but it's not a worldwide thing. It's that maybe some server maker took our reference design and maybe did something iffy, and that's what's causing the overheating issues. But overall, the system seems to be running fine. And again, that's more on the rack level, not on the chip level, which is very, very important to understand.
He's blaming the server. He's blaming the vendors, basically.
If there are any issues, and just if there are any issues, I think it's not necessarily an NVIDIA chip. It's something wrong with the reference design.
I think that's fair. I mean, like, and if that's the case, then the street has to be a little bit sympathetic to that. SMCI is up 5%. Jensen had this moment where he said every single company in the world is impacted by Nvidia or touched by Nvidia in some way, which is a pretty big statement. And he listed like 20 companies, and at the end he mentions Supermicro. Did you think he was going to mention them, or are you happy that he is not ignoring them?
I think Jensen is a very respectable man, and he respects all his partnerships. Obviously, I think right now he is working with everybody. Everybody that can make an AI server, he's working with them. And I'm not bullish or bearish for SMCI for NVIDIA to mention it. But I think investors might have been worried that there were a lot of reports going out there that NVIDIA was not going to be sending chips to Supermicro due to the whole drama. So I guess this kind of helped cure some of those uncertainties for Supermicro.
Yeah, because he didn't mention them till the very end. And a lot of people thought, all right, he's going to just ignore them right here. But no, he mentioned them. So it seems like he's going to keep working with them. Here's Dan Ives on the results, everybody.
But let's get to Dan Ives now, Global Head of Technology Research at Wedbush Securities. As this market digests this news, Dan, we are seeing a little pairing of those declines. You were looking for a mic drop quarter. Could you call this that?
I think you print this press release off and you could put it in the Louvre. Just frame it. Because look, I mean, what you're really seeing here, this is a stock that's going to be green tomorrow. I mean, what they're picking up in terms of Hopper, in terms of overall growth, it's exactly what the Bulls want, and he'll continue to underpromise. I mean, next quarter that could be a 4 in front of it in terms of ultimately revenue. This is just the beginning of the AI revolution. $4 trillion on its way.
Sure, and long term, you may be very well right, but are you not concerned about this plus or minus 2% that the company is reporting on revenue, simply because the market wants the company to beat and beat well every quarter?
Yeah, if you looked up sandbag special in the dictionary, you'd see this guidance. And I think Street's going to look through it. I think there's a stock that probably will be up even on the conference call, because if you look at everything that they did here in terms of the data center, you could Hopper. We could be talking 5, 7, 8 billion per quarter. That was just ultimately many thought it could just be a few billion. So as this all plays out and you start to look at numbers over the next, call it 12 to 18 months, the godfather of AI, Jensen, Nvidia, continue to be in that Mount Rushmore. And it just shows it's starting with Nvidia. Now second, third, fourth derivatives playing out. That's why it's 9:30, 10 p.m. in this AI party. That goes to 4 a.m.
Oof. Has the time changed at all since you came out with that?
It was 9 p.m.
Okay.
And now we're 9:30,
okay,
10
got
p.m.
it. So my other question to you, since there are so many there's so much comments on Blackwell, how production will ramp up into fiscal 2026, the production shipments will begin in the fourth quarter of fiscal year 2025, which is the current quarter. Does NVIDIA break out Blackwell revenue, or is this something that you and investors always need to reverse engineer out of the data center numbers?
Yeah, essentially investors reverse engineer it. But if you look in terms of some of the wording there, basically saying any of those heating issues, don't worry about it. And I think that's going to give more and more comfort. This is going to ram significantly in terms of that. And I think that continues to be the story, because we've talked about from our Asia trip, demand to supply 15 to 1. And there's only one game in town, and he's wearing a black leather jacket. His name's Jensen. And I think that's why this continues to be still in the early days of what I believe we'll be talking about $4 trillion on.
You mentioned the overheating issues, and these are Blackwell, overheating, which might require redesign of the servers housing the chips. And the companies that make the servers are Dell, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, Supermicro. Do they end up carrying the cost of having to redesign everything?
Yeah, but ultimately, I think that is something that's really noise. And from all the checks we do, that's why, look, when you're at the top of the mountain, you're always going to have people trying to take shots at you. But if you look at how NVIDIA is playing out here, there's really no production issues as this all ramped. And that's why when you hear from Jensen today, I think investors are going to realize this AI revolution, now it's about second, third, fourth derivatives. You look what's going to play across software, across the rest of semis, across cybersecurity. If you're a tech bull, this combined with obviously the last few weeks in terms of Trump, Musk, and everything we see, this is what I think is really going to be a setup to a Santa Claus rally.
So we are seeing Nvidia saying that Blackwell is going to exceed supply for several quarters, but that there are some supply constraints. Now, you do those channel checks, Dan. Tell us the truth. Where have you seen those bottlenecks or those potential places where supply will be constrained?
Everyone's waiting in line. They're at the velvet ropes, and there's only one party, and that's really in terms of Nvidia and Jensen. I think the issue there is that you want those next chips. That's what everyone. That's the new oil or gold.
Yeah, but that's the customer side. I'm talking about from the supply side, from Nvidia being able to actually deliver these.
It's ramping. It's ramping. Look, like any new production, any new chip, it's going to take time to ramp. But I would say if you thought relative to 3 months ago, had expectations. So you sit there right now. If Jensen's flying the plane, you're in 3A watching Netflix, feeling pretty good.
In terms of pricing power, can Jensen Huang raise the prices of those Blackwell chips even more than what he has already? I mean, what are you expecting on that front? And should people look for maybe increased prices for those chips?
They definitely can, but right now it's all about market share. They're just going to continue to go further and further out. And even when you look at what the hyperscalers are spending, you have now $300-400 billion of capex, AI capex, just in your sites. Then you think about sovereigns, you look at private, look at everything else. It just shows we are in an unparalleled, once in a 40-year tech trend, and that's why that Mount Rushmore is Jensen along with Nadella, Karp, and others.
Wow, you got Karp and Nadella on the Mount Rushmore with Jensen. So anything he said there that you disagree with, or do you think he's spot on in his analysis?
No, I think it's very spot on, and I think he did something great by making sure that ones understand that if there are overheating issues, it's at the server side and not at the chip side, which is just noise at the end of the day. So I think long-term investor earnings were great. Stock price, I believe tomorrow we're going to see a lot of analysts just continue to reiterate what we might have heard these past weeks on either price targets, on either buy ratings, because I don't think there's anything out here that should really scare long-term investors about their thesis.
I agree. I think earnings were great. They beat on revenue by $2 billion. Guidance, I agree with Dan Ives. I think they're sandbagging at 37.5. It's probably coming in closer to 39 billion. Net income margins went up. Gross margins slightly down, but they have issues, or they have a way to address that. And ultimately, if you believe in AI, Nvidia is one of those stocks to be long on when it comes to that overarching ecosystem. That doesn't mean that it's necessarily cheap right now. That's based on kind of your subjective understanding of valuation. Everyone has a different take on that. But I definitely don't think this was a quarter where we deserve a negative 6 or 7% down day tomorrow. And maybe it goes green, maybe it doesn't. Kind of streets recovering from 138 where it was at before, now at 144. Option sellers win today, kind of flat. The street thinks, all right, it's already up 200% year to date. We don't need to add more to it. But they're definitely not taking away from it. And I think for everybody here that's a general investor, even if you're not in Nvidia, you need the market to end out good this year. You have the Trump presidency, obviously, which the market loved. Q3 earnings have been pretty strong in every single industry. Most companies are beating on the top and the bottom line. You needed Nvidia to do the same. The stock is the stock, but Nvidia has delivered. And I think that's overall good for the market.
Yep. I'm pretty excited, and I'll probably be dropping. I'll most likely be reading the transcript one more time to see if there's anything I missed, and I'll be dropping another video later today on this.
All right, there you go. That is it for us, folks. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I think at one point we had 19,000 people watching. It means the absolute world for us. Thank you all for being here today. We did this last time. We will do it next time, and we were able to do it this time. For the people on my channel, this is Jose's YouTube. You guys already know him pretty well, but you guys can follow him there. His Twitter will be in the description as well. And we really appreciate you spending the time with us and getting to watch us break down and analyze the results. Jose, any last thoughts?
Thank you. I'm not that quick with live stream, but I'll try to share your channel in my comments. But thank you again for having me. Thank you for the viewers on your side, and thank you for the viewers on my side. You guys are awesome, and thank you for the support. And make sure to catch the morning stream tomorrow.
I love it. Thank you, everybody. Again, we can't do this unless you guys show up here and continue to enjoy the content. Hopefully, we can keep making valuable content that makes it fun enough for you guys to join every single time. NVIDIA Q3 2024 earnings. It's done. Jensen delivered. And tomorrow in the market open, we will see how the market interprets it. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one. We'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.